What if the deathly Hallows called to Harry at age 7 and all three found him before Hogwarts Chapter 1? The whispers beyond the cupboard. Harry Potter jolted awake in his tiny cupboard under the stairs, heart hammering against his ribs. That dream again, strange whispers calling his name, three shadows dancing just beyond his reach. He rubbed his eyes, the lightning bolt scar on his forehead tingling like it sometimes did after these dreams. "Boy! Get up and start breakfast." Aunt Petunia's shrill voice cut through the morning quiet, followed by her bony knuckles rapping sharply against his door. "Coming, Aunt Petunia," Harry mumbled, reaching for his taped-up glasses. 7 years old and already responsible for cooking breakfast for the entire Dursley household. Harry slipped out of his cupboard, ducking to avoid hitting his head on the low doorframe. As he trudged toward the kitchen, Dudley deliberately shoulder-checked him into the wall. "Watch it, freak," his cousin sneered, waddling past to claim his spot at the table where he'd wait to be served like some miniature king. Harry bit his tongue. Talking back only meant trouble. Instead, he focused on not burning the bacon while standing on the step stool Uncle Vernon had grudgingly provided so Harry could reach the stove. The whispers from his dreams lingered in his mind throughout the day. Even at school, Harry found himself distracted, drawing three strange symbols in the margins of his notebook, a triangle, a circle, and a line. "What's that, Potter?" his teacher asked, startling him. "Nothing, ma'am," Harry quickly covered the drawing with his hand. "Just doodling." That night, after a dinner of Dudley's leftovers, which wasn't much, Harry crawled back into his cupboard and curled up on his thin mattress. The space felt even smaller than usual, and the darkness pressed in around him. But strangely, he wasn't afraid. The darkness felt familiar somehow. "I wish I could just disappear sometimes," Harry whispered to himself, tracing the symbols on his blanket with his finger. Triangle, circle, line. Over and over. Harry didn't remember falling asleep, but he must have because suddenly he was dreaming again. The whispering grew louder, more insistent. "Harry. Harry Potter. Who's there?" Harry called into the darkness of his dream. "The rightful master, Blood of Peveril. I don't understand. We are coming, we are yours, as was destined." Harry woke with a gasp, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cupboard's chill. Something felt different. The air seemed to shimmer slightly, like heat rising from pavement on a summer day. Harry reached out, expecting to touch nothing but air. His fingers brushed against something silky. "What?" Harry whispered, grabbing at the material. It was fabric, impossibly soft and fluid, like water woven into cloth. In the dim light filtering through the cupboard vents, Harry could barely make out a silvery, shimmering cloak that definitely hadn't been there when he went to sleep. Harry's hands trembled as he lifted the cloak. It was beautiful, unlike anything he'd ever seen. And when he draped it over his arm experimentally, his arm vanished. "Whoa!" Harry clamped his other hand over his mouth to stifle his shout. His arm was gone, not gone, he could still feel it, but invisible. Cautiously, he swung the cloak around his shoulders. Looking down, Harry saw nothing but the dusty floor of his cupboard. His body had completely disappeared. "Wicked," he breathed, his mind racing with possibilities. For the first time in his life, Harry had something that was truly his. Something magical. Something the Dursleys couldn't take away because they couldn't know about it. The realization sent a thrill through him unlike anything he'd ever felt. The next morning, Harry hid the cloak carefully beneath the loose floorboard he'd discovered under his mattress. All day, his thoughts kept returning to it, wondering what he could do with it, where it had come from. The whispers in his dreams had said, "We are coming." Was the cloak just the beginning? That night, after the Dursleys had gone to sleep, Harry slipped the cloak over himself and carefully opened his cupboard door. It creaked slightly, and he froze, but Uncle Vernon's snores continued uninterrupted from upstairs. Heart pounding with excitement, Harry crept through the house, reveling in his newfound freedom. He raided the refrigerator, stuffing himself with leftover roast chicken and cake that Dudley hadn't managed to finish. He explored the living room, flipping through channels on the television with the volume barely audible. He even dared to peek into Dudley's second bedroom, filled with broken toys and abandoned gifts. Night after night, Harry continued his secret explorations, gradually venturing further from Privet Drive. He discovered he could slip out of the house entirely, exploring the neighborhood under the safety of his cloak. One night, he even followed Mrs. Fig home and was surprised to discover she had even more cats than he'd thought, and they seemed to stare right at him despite his invisibility. During the day, Harry noticed subtle changes in how the Dursleys treated him. It wasn't that they were kinder, they weren't, but they seemed uneasy around him, as if sensing something had changed. "Boy's got a look about him," he overheard Uncle Vernon mutter to Aunt Petunia. "Like he's plotting something." "Don't be ridiculous, Vernon," Aunt Petunia sniffed. "What could he possibly do?" Harry smiled to himself. They had no idea. 2 weeks after finding the cloak, Harry was weeding the garden when he spotted something glinting in the dirt. Glancing around to make sure Aunt Petunia wasn't watching, he dug it out with his fingers, a strange black stone with a crack running down the middle. Carved into its surface was a familiar symbol, the triangle, circle, and line from his dreams. The moment his fingers closed around the stone, it grew warm in his palm. The whispers returned, louder than before, but this time they weren't coming from his dreams. They were coming from the stone itself. "Turn it thrice in hand," the voices urged. "Call to those you wish to see." Harry glanced toward the house. Aunt Petunia was busy inside, and the fence blocked the neighbor's view. With trembling fingers, he turned the stone over in his hand once, twice, 3 times. "Mom? Dad?" he whispered, hardly daring to hope. The air before him shimmered, not unlike the effect of his cloak. 2 figures began to take shape, ghostly, transparent, but undeniably human. A tall man with messy hair just like Harry's and round glasses. Beside him, a woman with flowing red hair and eyes the exact shade of green as Harry's own. "Harry," the woman said, her voice sounding distant yet crystal clear. "Oh, Harry, look at you." Harry couldn't speak. Tears welled in his eyes as he stared at the parents he'd never known, parents he'd only seen in the one crumpled photograph he'd stolen from Aunt Petunia's discarded albums. "Son," his father said, smiling proudly. "You found the Hallows." "The Hallows?" Harry managed to choke out. "The Deathly Hallows," Lily Potter explained gently. 3 magical objects of immense power. You already have 2, the Cloak of Invisibility and the Resurrection Stone. They've chosen you, Harry. But why me? And how can I see you? Aunt Petunia said you died in a car crash. James Potter's face darkened. A car crash? Is that what they told you? No, Harry, we were murdered by a dark wizard named Voldemort. We died protecting you. A wizard? Harry's mind reeled. But Uncle Vernon says there's no such thing as magic. Lily laughed softly. Oh, Harry. Magic is very real. You're a wizard, just like your father. I was a witch. And you're a very special wizard indeed. Before Harry could ask more questions, he heard Aunt Petunia calling from the house. Don't go, he pleaded. We're never truly gone, James assured him. With the stone, you can call us whenever you need us. But don't let the Dursleys see. Don't let anyone know about the Hallows yet. They're your birthright, Lily added. The cloak has been in the Potter family for generations. The stone found you because it sensed the cloak had chosen its master. And the third Hallow will come soon. What's the third one? Harry asked quickly, hearing Aunt Petunia's footsteps approaching. The Elder Wand, James replied. The most powerful wand ever created. Be careful, Harry. These objects are dangerous in the wrong hands. Boy. What are you doing, lazing about? Aunt Petunia rounded the corner. Harry quickly pocketed the stone, and his parents' figures vanished. Nothing, Aunt Petunia. Just pulling weeds. That night, safely hidden in his cupboard with both the cloak and the stone, Harry called his parents again. For hours, they told him about the wizarding world, about Hogwarts school where he'd go when he turned 11, about his heritage and their lives. They explained about Voldemort and how Harry had somehow survived his attack, becoming famous as the boy who lived. The Hallows chose you for a reason, James explained. You're descended from the Peverell brothers who first possessed them. But more than that, I think they sensed something in you, a strength, a purity of heart. But I'm not strong, Harry protested. I can't even stand up to Dudley. Lily's eyes softened. Strength isn't about muscle, Harry. It's about courage, determination, love. And you have those in abundance, even if you don't see it yet. Over the next few days, Harry's world expanded dramatically. By day, he went through the motions of his life with the Dursleys. By night, he learned from his parents about magic, about his heritage, about a world he'd never known existed. They couldn't teach him actual spells without a wand, but they explained magical theory and history. When will the Elder Wand find me? Harry asked one night. And what exactly does it do? The Elder Wand is said to be unbeatable, James explained. It makes any spell more powerful. As for when it will come to you, that's hard to say. It currently has another master. Who? Albus Dumbledore, the headmaster of Hogwarts. A very powerful, very wise wizard. Will he just give it to me? James and Lily exchanged looks. It's complicated, Lily said. Normally, the wand passes to whoever defeats its current master. But the Hallows seem to be bending their own rules for you. I suspect when the time is right, it will find its way to you. That time came sooner than any of them expected. 1 week later, hundreds of miles away in Scotland, Albus Dumbledore reached for the Elder Wand on his desk and found nothing but empty air. In that same moment, Harry Potter woke to find a long, knobby wand lying across his chest, humming with power. The third Hallow had arrived. In a tower office at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Albus Dumbledore paced back and forth, his normally twinkling blue eyes troubled. Minerva McGonagall watched him with growing concern. Albus, are you certain? The Elder Wand, simply, gone. Quite certain, Minerva, Dumbledore replied, stroking his long silver beard. I placed it on my desk last night, and this morning it had vanished. No alarm was triggered. No protective spell was broken. It's as if the wand itself chose to leave. But that's impossible. Wands don't just, ordinary wands, no. But the Elder Wand has its own magic, its own will, you might say. Dumbledore paused by the window, gazing out at the grounds. What troubles me most is what this might mean. You think someone stole it? But who could penetrate Hogwarts' defenses without detection? Not who, Minerva. What? Dumbledore turned to face her. I fear the Hallows are uniting. McGonagall's face paled. The Deathly Hallows? But that would mean, yes. A new master has been chosen. And if my suspicions are correct, we may need to pay young Harry Potter a visit much sooner than planned. Back at Privet Drive, Harry clutched the Elder Wand in trembling hands, feeling its power thrumming through his fingers. When he'd called his parents to show them, they'd looked both amazed and worried. This changes everything, James had said. The Hallows haven't been united under one master in, well, ever, as far as we know. What does it mean? Harry had asked. It means you need to be very careful, Lily had warned. Others will sense this power, Harry. People will come looking. You need to learn to control it before they find you. Now, alone in his cupboard, Harry pointed the wand at a spider crawling across the ceiling. His parents had explained the basics of spell casting, though they'd warned him about the trace, a charm that detected underage magic. But they'd also theorized that the Elder Wand might be different, might be able to shield its wielder from such detection. Lumos, Harry whispered, picturing light in his mind. The tip of the wand ignited instantly, blazing so brightly that Harry had to squint. Panicking slightly, he hissed, "Nox," and the light extinguished. His heart pounded as he waited for some response, a letter from the ministry his parents had mentioned, or Uncle Vernon yanking open his cupboard door having seen the flash of light. But nothing happened. Slowly, a grin spread across Harry's face. The trace hadn't detected him, or if it had, the Elder Wand had somehow masked it. Over the next few days, Harry practiced simple spells in the privacy of his cupboard. Lumos and Nox became second nature. He managed a wobbly Wingardium Leviosa that lifted his worn-out socks into the air. He even attempted reparo on his broken toy soldiers, watching in amazement as the cracks sealed themselves. But the real test came when Dudley and his gang cornered Harry after school. "Nowhere to run now, Potter," Dudley sneered, cracking his knuckles as his friends formed a circle around Harry. "Think you're so smart with your weird drawings and muttering to yourself. Let's see how smart you look with a bloody nose." Harry's hand closed around the Elder Wand in his pocket. He'd been carrying it everywhere, unable to bear parting with it. Now, feeling its reassuring warmth against his palm, Harry straightened his shoulders and met Dudley's piggy eyes. "Leave me alone, Dudley," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. Dudley laughed. "Or what, freak? You'll cry to your dead mummy?" Something hot and powerful surged through Harry at those words. Without thinking, he pulled the wand from his pocket and pointed it at his cousin. He didn't speak any spell, he didn't know one for what he wanted, but his intent flowed through the wand. "Push them away. Don't hurt them, just push them back." A gust of wind erupted from the wand's tip, invisible but forceful. It slammed into Dudley and his friends, sending them stumbling backwards several feet. They landed on their backsides, expressions of shock and fear replacing their bullying sneers. "What the?" Dudley gasped. "What did you do?" Harry was as surprised as they were, but he didn't show it. Instead, he stepped forward, wand still raised. "I'm done being your punching bag, Dudley. From now on, you and your friends stay away from me. Understand?" Piers Polkiss, Dudley's rat-faced best friend, scrambled to his feet. "He's got a weapon. Run!" The gang fled, even Dudley, casting terrified glances back at Harry. When they were gone, Harry quickly pocketed the wand, his hands shaking with adrenaline and exhilaration. He'd stood up to Dudley. He'd used magic, real magic, and it had worked. That evening, Harry braced himself for the inevitable explosion when Dudley told his parents. But to his surprise, when Dudley arrived home, he didn't say a word about the incident. He avoided looking at Harry altogether, flinching when Harry came near. It was as if Dudley couldn't quite remember what had happened, but retained enough of the fear to keep his distance. "The Elder Wand protected you," Lily explained when Harry told his parents about it that night. "It likely confounded them slightly, that's a spell that confuses people. They know something happened, but the details are fuzzy." "That's brilliant!" Harry exclaimed. "It's dangerous," James cautioned. "Harry, you need to be careful with that wand. It's not a toy, and using it against muggles, even Dudley, could get you in serious trouble." "But they didn't detect it, right? The ministry didn't send any letters." "This time," Lily said. "But the more you use it, the more chance there is that someone will notice. Especially more powerful spells." Harry reluctantly agreed to be more careful, but in his heart, he knew everything had changed. He was no longer just the unwanted orphan boy the Dursleys had grudgingly taken in. He was Harry Potter, a wizard, master of the deathly Hallows. And no one would ever bully him again. Life at Privet Drive transformed over the next few weeks. Harry continued sleeping in the cupboard. He preferred it now, as it gave him privacy to practice magic and talk with his parents, but otherwise, his status in the household shifted dramatically. The Dursleys couldn't explain the change, but they sensed something different about their nephew. It wasn't just that Harry walked taller or spoke more confidently. There was an aura around him now, a subtle but palpable energy that made the hairs on the back of their necks stand up when he entered a room. Dudley avoided Harry entirely. Uncle Vernon still blustered and shouted, but there was a new hesitancy in his voice, and he no longer cuffed Harry around the head or locked him in the cupboard as punishment. Aunt Petunia still assigned Harry chores, but when he finished them quickly, with subtle magical help, she didn't immediately find more work for him. For his part, Harry was careful not to push his advantage too far. He still did his chores, still ate less than Dudley, still wore hand-me-downs. But he no longer accepted verbal abuse in silence, and he certainly didn't let himself go hungry. The food is all there anyway, he explained to his parents' shimmering forms as he showed them the dinner he'd snuck from the kitchen. They always make too much, and half of it goes to waste or to Dudley's second helpings. I'm just taking my fair share. James chuckled. A true marauder in the making. Your dad would be proud. Wait, I am your dad. And I am proud. Lily rolled her eyes fondly. Just be careful, Harry. Vernon and Petunia are bullies, but provoking them too much could still cause problems. Harry nodded, understanding the delicate balance he needed to maintain. He was learning when to use his magic and when to rely on his wits alone. The Hallows gave him power, yes, but they also gave him confidence, something he'd never had before. One evening, after a particularly successful day where he'd managed to repair his broken glasses with a perfect reparo spell, Harry sat cross-legged in his cupboard with all 3 Hallows arranged before him. The cloak shimmered in the dim light, the stone gleamed darkly, and the Elder Wand hummed with quiet power. I still don't understand why they chose me, Harry said to his parents, who sat opposite him, their ghostly forms illuminating the small space with a soft glow. The Hallows are drawn to worthy masters, James explained. Throughout history, people have sought them for power, for glory, for conquest. But you never sought them at all. They came to you because of who you are, Harry, Lily added. Not because of fame or talent, but because of your heart. Harry traced the symbol on the stone with his finger. But what am I supposed to do with them? I mean, besides not letting the Dursleys push me around. His parents exchanged one of those meaningful looks that Harry had come to recognize. They were deciding how much to tell him. The Hallows have a purpose, James finally said. An old legend says that one who unites all 3 becomes the Master of Death. Harry's eyes widened. Master of Death. What does that even mean? No one knows for certain, Lily admitted. Some believe it grants immortality. Others think it gives power over the dead. But we believe it's something else entirely. We think, James continued, it means understanding death, accepting it as part of life's journey, not fearing it or running from it, but not surrendering to it before your time either. Harry frowned, trying to wrap his 7-year-old mind around such complex concepts. So, the Hallows chose me to teach me about death. In a way, Lily said softly. But also to protect you. Harry, there's something we haven't told you yet about the night we died. About why Voldemort came after us specifically. Harry leaned forward, his full attention captured. His parents had told him about Voldemort, about how they'd opposed him and how he'd murdered them, but they'd never explained why their family had been targeted. There was a prophecy, James began heavily. A prediction that a child born as July ended would have the power to defeat the Dark Lord. It could have meant one of 2 boys, you or another baby named Neville Longbottom. But Voldemort chose you. He marked you as his equal, Lily said, gesturing to Harry's lightning scar. And in doing so, he fulfilled part of the prophecy himself. But he's not gone forever, Harry. The night he tried to kill you, his body was destroyed, but his spirit survives. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. He's coming back. We fear he will try, James confirmed grimly. And when he does, he'll come for you again. That's why the Hallows have found you now, years before you'll go to Hogwarts. They're preparing you, protecting you. Harry looked down at the three objects that had changed his life so dramatically. For the first time, he felt the weight of them as well as the wonder. These weren't just magical toys, they were tools, weapons, responsibilities. "I'll be ready," he said quietly. "When he comes back, I'll be ready." The determination in the young boy's voice made both Lily and James smile sadly. Their son was still so young to carry such burdens, but they could already see the strength in him, the courage that would define him in years to come. "You won't face him alone," Lily promised. "Not ever." The mysterious disappearance of the Elder Wand had thrown the wizarding world into quiet turmoil, quiet because Albus Dumbledore had done his best to keep the news from spreading widely. Still, rumors circulated among certain circles, and one of those rumors reached ears that had been waiting years for such an opportunity. In a decrepit manor house far from Privet Drive, a frail, possessed man shuddered as the parasite within him absorbed this crucial information. The Elder Wand, gone from Dumbledore, the host's voice rasped, though the words were not his own. "And you're certain of this, Quirrell?" "Why yes, my lord," Quirinus Quirrell stammered, his body fighting against the possession even as his mind surrendered to it. "My contact at the Ministry overheard Dumbledore discussing it with McGonagall. They believe all three Hallows may be uniting." The parasite, all that remained of Lord Voldemort, considered this information carefully. The Deathly Hallows had never interested him particularly, immortality through Horcruxes had seemed a more certain path than chasing children's tales. But the Elder Wand, an unbeatable wand, would certainly accelerate his return to power. "We must discover who has taken it," he decided. The cloak was Potter's, passed to the boy no doubt. And if the stone has emerged as well? "Quirrell, we have a new priority. Find the boy." "P. Potter, my lord." "But he's protected, not from a distance. We need not approach him yet. Watch him, learn his routines, discover if he indeed possesses what I suspect he might. If the Hallows are truly uniting under a new master, I want to know everything about him before we make our move." Within Quirrell's body, Voldemort's fragmented soul burned with new purpose. The boy who lived had denied him physical form, had reduced him to this parasitic existence. If the child now possessed the Deathly Hallows as well, it was an insult not to be borne. "Soon, Harry Potter," he whispered to himself as Quirrell's body collapsed into exhausted sleep. "Soon we shall meet again, and I will take everything from you." Back at Privet Drive, Harry woke suddenly, his scar burning fiercely. The pain was brief but intense, fading quickly to a dull throb. Sitting up in his cupboard, he pressed his palm against his forehead, feeling the raised lightning bolt beneath his fingers. Something was coming. He didn't know what, but he could sense it, a shadow on the horizon, distant but approaching. Harry glanced at the three Hallows, now hidden safely beneath his floorboard except for the cloak, which he kept wrapped around himself as he slept. The Elder Wand had been teaching him, in its way. Not with words, but with feelings, intuitions, subtle guidance when he attempted new spells. It wanted him to learn faster, to grow stronger. Now he understood why. Settling back onto his thin mattress, Harry pulled the invisibility cloak tighter around himself. He wasn't afraid, not exactly. For the first time in his life, he wasn't alone. He had his parents' guidance, he had the Hallows' protection, and most importantly, he had something he'd never possessed before, power of his own. Whatever was coming, Harry Potter would be ready. Summer arrived, bringing with it freedom from school and longer days for Harry to practice his magic. Now 8 years old, he had developed a routine that maximized both his learning and his independence from the Dursleys. Mornings were spent doing chores quickly with subtle magical assistance. Afternoons, he would slip on his cloak and explore further from Privet Drive, sometimes venturing all the way to the local library where he devoured books on subjects that might help him understand his new abilities: physics, mythology, history, even philosophy. Evenings, he would call his parents with the stone and practice spellwork with their guidance, learning not just the how but the why of magic. Magical theory is just as important as practical application, Lily often reminded him, her teacher's instincts shining through. Understanding the principles behind a spell makes casting it more effective. Tonight, they were discussing the concept of intent in magic, a subject that fascinated Harry. So if I really want something to happen, the spell is stronger, he asked, twirling the elder wand between his fingers with the casual ease of someone far older. It's more complicated than just wanting, James explained. It's about clarity of purpose, about channeling your magic with precision toward a specific outcome. The wand helps focus that intent, but the power comes from within you. Harry nodded thoughtfully. He'd noticed this effect in his practice. Spells worked better when he clearly visualized the outcome, when he felt the magic flowing through him with purpose rather than just saying the words and waving the wand. Can I try something? He asked suddenly. Something bigger than what we've been doing. His parents exchanged concerned looks. What did you have in mind? Lily asked cautiously. Well. Harry hesitated. The cupboard is getting kind of small. I was thinking maybe I could expand it. From the inside. I read about pocket dimensions in a science fiction book, and I thought, an extension charm, James interrupted, looking impressed. That's advanced magic, Harry. Very advanced, Lily agreed, but she was smiling. But if anyone could manage it with that wand, it would be you. With his parents' guidance, Harry spent the next hour learning the theory behind spatial extension charms. The spell itself was complex, involving precise wand movements and visualization techniques that stretched Harry's abilities. But the elder wand seemed eager to help, warming in his hand as he practiced the motions. Capacious extremis, Harry finally whispered, drawing a large rectangle in the air with the wand, then pushing outward with both hands. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like air being sucked through a straw, the walls of the cupboard seemed to ripple and stretch. Harry gasped as the tiny space expanded around him, not enormously, but enough that he could now stand up straight without hitting his head, enough that his mattress no longer took up most of the floor space. The exterior dimensions remained unchanged, but the interior had nearly doubled in size. I did it! Harry exclaimed, turning to his parents with a grin of pure delight. Incredible, James breathed, looking around the expanded space. Harry, wizards twice your age struggle with that charm. Lily beamed with pride. You're a natural, sweetheart. Just be careful that the Dursleys don't look inside and notice. They never look in here if they can help it, Harry pointed out. They pretend I don't exist half the time. The truth was, the Dursleys had been giving Harry an increasingly wide berth. Vernon still blustered and threatened, but rarely followed through. Petunia's lips still pinched disapprovingly when Harry entered a room, but she no longer shrieked orders at him constantly. And Dudley. Dudley practically ran the other direction whenever he saw Harry coming. I think they're afraid of me, Harry confessed to his parents. Not because I've done anything to them, but because they can feel something's different. Muggles often sense magic even when they don't believe in it, Lily explained. And the Hallows amplify your magical signature. Plus, you're growing into your power naturally now. Soon, you'll need a proper outlet for it. You mean Hogwarts? Harry asked eagerly. They'd told him all about the magical school, about the 4 houses and the classes and the feasts in the Great Hall. It sounded like paradise to a boy who'd never known anything but neglect and isolation at Privet Drive. Yes, but that's still 3 years away, James reminded him. In the meantime, you need to be careful about how much magic you use, especially outside this house. The trace might not detect the Elder Wand, but other witches and wizards can sense strong magic being performed. Harry nodded solemnly. He understood the need for secrecy, not just because of ministry regulations about underage magic, but because of the prophecy, because of Voldemort. Somewhere out there, the dark wizard who had murdered his parents was waiting, planning, seeking a way back. And when he returned, he would come for Harry. But for now, in his newly expanded cupboard with his parents' spirits keeping him company and the Hallows humming with power around him, Harry felt safe. More than safe, he felt ready. The first real test of Harry's growing abilities came a month later, on Dudley's 8th birthday. The Dursleys had planned to leave Harry with Mrs. Figg as usual while they took Dudley and a friend to an amusement park. But Mrs. Figg had broken her leg tripping over one of her cats, and there was no one else willing to take Harry for the day. "We'll have to bring him with us," Aunt Petunia said reluctantly, after hanging up the phone with the last potential babysitter. "I won't have him ruining Dudley's special day," Uncle Vernon thundered, his face turning that dangerous shade of purple that Harry had learned to watch for. "He can wait in the car," Petunia suggested. "And have people see him there alone all day? They'll think we're neglecting him." Harry, listening from the hallway under his invisibility cloak, smirked at the irony. Heaven forbid someone think the Dursleys were neglecting him. They'd only locked him in a cupboard for most of his life, fed him scraps, clothed him in rags, and told him his parents were worthless drunks who died in a car crash. "I have an idea," Harry said, slipping the cloak off and stepping into the kitchen. Both Dursleys jumped, not having heard him approach. "Don't sneak up on people," Vernon snapped. "And don't interrupt adult conversations." "Sorry, Uncle Vernon," Harry said, not sounding sorry at all. "I just thought you might like to know that Mrs. Figg's neighbor, Mr. Franklin, is home today. He's a retired teacher. I'm sure he wouldn't mind watching me." Petunia frowned. "How would you know that? And why would he agree to watch you?" Harry shrugged innocently. "I've talked to him a few times while weeding the garden. He seems nice. I could ask him." The truth was, Harry had no intention of spending the day with anyone. He planned to use his cloak to slip away once the Dursleys were gone, giving himself a rare day of complete freedom. But the Dursleys didn't need to know that. "Fine," Vernon grunted after a moment's consideration. "Go ask him now. And if he says no, you'll sit in the car and keep quiet the whole day, understand?" "Yes, Uncle Vernon," Harry replied, already heading for the door, fighting to keep the grin off his face. 20 minutes later, Harry returned with the news that Mr. Franklin had agreed to watch him. The Dursleys, eager to be rid of him and get on with Dudley's birthday celebrations, didn't question it further. They bundled Dudley and his friend Piers into the car and drove off with barely a backward glance at Harry standing on the doorstep, waving innocently. The moment they turned the corner, Harry's demeanor changed. His shoulders straightened, a genuine smile replaced the forced one, and his eyes gleamed with excitement. Freedom, an entire day to himself with no chores, no Dursleys, no pretending to be less than he was. Slipping back into the house, Harry collected his 3 treasures from their hiding place. The cloak went around his shoulders, the stone into his pocket, and the Elder Wand into his hand. Then, invisible to the world, he set off for an adventure of his own. His destination was London. His parents had told him about Diagon Alley, the hidden wizarding shopping district accessible through a pub called the Leaky Cauldron. Harry wasn't sure he could get into Diagon Alley proper without help, but he was determined to at least find the Leaky Cauldron, to see some tangible evidence of the wizarding world beyond his own magic. Getting to London was the first challenge. He'd need to take a train, which meant money, something Harry didn't have. But he did have magic. Standing at the bus stop near Privet Drive, Harry considered his options. He could simply sneak onto public transportation under his cloak, but that felt wrong somehow. He wanted to pay his way, not steal a ride. Finally, he had an idea. Ducking behind the bus shelter where no one could see, Harry removed his cloak and pointed the Elder Wand at a fallen leaf. "Geminio," he whispered, focusing intently on the leaf. A second, identical leaf appeared beside the first. Harry grinned. The Geminio spell created temporary duplicates, but temporary should be enough for what he needed. Next, he pulled out the few coins he'd managed to save from doing yard work for neighbors, not enough for a ticket to London, but a start. Placing a £1 coin on the ground, he cast Geminio again, focusing hard on making the duplicate as perfect as possible. A second coin appeared, indistinguishable from the first. Harry knew creating money was probably against wizarding law, just as counterfeiting was illegal in the Muggle world. But these duplicates would vanish in a few hours, and he was only creating enough for a train ticket. He justified it to himself as an emergency measure, something he wouldn't make a habit of. With enough duplicated coins for a return ticket to London, Harry put his cloak back on and waited for the bus that would take him to the train station. Throughout the journey, he remained invisible, only removing the cloak briefly in an empty bathroom to purchase his ticket from a machine. London was overwhelming, louder, busier, and more chaotic than Harry had imagined. Still invisible, he navigated the crowded streets carefully, following the directions his parents had given him from memory. Charing Cross Road, look for a shabby pub between a bookshop and a record store. And then he saw it. A small, dingy establishment that the hurrying Londoners seemed not to notice at all. Their eyes slid from the bookshop to the record store as if the pub between them didn't exist. But Harry could see it clearly, and the sign hanging above the door, the Leaky Cauldron. His heart pounding with excitement, Harry approached the pub. Through the grimy windows, he could see people inside wearing robes and pointed hats, some raising glasses that filled themselves, others reading newspapers with moving pictures. It was real, all of it. The wizarding world his parents had described wasn't just stories, it existed right here, hidden in plain sight. Harry desperately wanted to go inside, to immerse himself in this world that should have been his birthright. But caution held him back. His parents had warned him that he was famous in the wizarding world. If he walked into the Leaky Cauldron, someone might recognize him, and word would get back to Dumbledore that Harry Potter was wandering around London alone years before he should have known anything about magic. So instead, Harry contented himself with watching through the window, drinking in every magical sight. He stayed for nearly an hour, observing witches and wizards coming and going, listening to snippets of conversation about ministry regulations and Quidditch scores and potion ingredients. It was only when he noticed the time, the Dursleys would be returning in a few hours, that Harry reluctantly turned away. As he did, he bumped into someone hurrying past, momentarily disrupting the cloak and making his foot visible for a split second. "What the?" a voice exclaimed. Harry froze, looking up to see a tall, thin man with greasy black hair and a hooked nose staring right at where he stood. The man's dark eyes narrowed suspiciously, scanning the area where Harry's foot had appeared and vanished. Harry backed away slowly, careful not to make a sound or disturb the cloak again. The man, clearly a wizard, dressed in flowing black robes, continued to stare at the spot, his hand moving toward what Harry assumed was a wand in his pocket. "Invisibility cloak," the man muttered to himself. But who? Not waiting to find out if the wizard could somehow penetrate his cloak's magic, Harry turned and ran, weaving through the crowd as quickly as he dared while invisible. He didn't stop until he was several blocks away, his heart hammering in his chest. That had been too close. Whoever that wizard was, he'd nearly discovered Harry. And something about the man's calculating gaze, the way his eyes had searched so intently, made Harry think this wasn't someone he wanted to meet. Shaken by the near discovery but still exhilarated by his glimpse of the wizarding world, Harry made his way back to the train station. His duplicated coins were still holding their form, allowing him to purchase a return ticket to Little Whinging. By the time the Dursleys' car pulled into the driveway that evening, Harry was sitting innocently on the front step, as if he'd just been dropped off by Mr. Franklin. Dudley was clutching an enormous stuffed animal and several bags of gifts, while Vernon and Petunia looked exhausted from a day of indulging their son's every whim. "Boy," Vernon grunted as they approached. "Everything go all right with Mr. Franklin?" "Yes, Uncle Vernon," Harry replied politely. "He helped me with some math problems. Very educational day." Vernon grunted again, clearly uninterested now that he'd confirmed Harry hadn't caused any trouble. They all went inside, the Dursleys ignoring Harry as he slipped back to his cupboard. Once alone, Harry pulled out the stone and called his parents. Their ghostly forms appeared immediately, concern evident on their faces. Harry, where were you? Lily asked. We tried to appear earlier when you called, but something was blocking us, distance, we think. I went to London, Harry admitted. I wanted to see the leaky cauldron, to know that the wizarding world was real. James's expression was a mix of pride and worry. That was incredibly risky, Harry. But I understand why you did it. I'd have done the same at your age. James. Lily scolded. Don't encourage him. She turned back to Harry. Sweetheart, we're not angry, but you need to be more careful. If someone had discovered you. Someone almost did, Harry confessed, and told them about the wizard with the hooked nose and greasy hair who had spotted his foot. His parents exchanged a startled look. That sounds like Severus Snape, Lily said softly. Snape? James's expression darkened. What would he be doing in Muggle London? Who's Severus Snape? Harry asked, curious about their reactions. Another exchange of glances. He was a friend of mine, once, Lily explained carefully. Before Hogwarts and during our early years there. Later, he made some bad choices, fell in with the wrong crowd. Became a Death Eater, James added bluntly. One of Voldemort's followers. Though Dumbledore vouched for him after Voldemort's fall, claimed he'd been a spy for our side all along. Do you believe that? Harry asked, noting the skepticism in his father's tone. I don't know, James admitted. Dumbledore trusted him, but Snape and we had a complicated history. We didn't get along at school. That's putting it mildly, Lily murmured. The important thing, Harry, is that if that was indeed Severus Snape, and if he suspected someone was there under an invisibility cloak, he might report it to Dumbledore. You need to be more careful. Harry nodded solemnly. I will. But it was amazing, seeing other witches and wizards, knowing I'm not alone, that there's a whole world out there waiting for me. Lily's expression softened. We understand, sweetheart. And you will be part of that world properly, soon enough. But for now, James finished, you need to master what you can hear, safely. The Hallows chose you for a reason, Harry. Trust in that, and in yourself. Harry nodded, his mind already filling with plans for new spells to learn, new ways to prepare himself for whatever lay ahead. The glimpse of the wizarding world had only strengthened his determination. One day, he would walk openly through the door of the leaky cauldron, wand in hand, ready to claim his place in the world where he truly belonged. But first, he had much to learn. In a dimly lit office deep within Hogwarts Castle, Severus Snape sat across from Albus Dumbledore, his narrow face set in its usual scowl. An invisibility cloak, you say? Dumbledore leaned forward, his blue eyes sharp behind half-moon spectacles. And you're certain of this, Severus? I saw a child's foot appear and disappear, Snape replied curtly. Momentarily, but unmistakably. Someone small was wearing an invisibility cloak outside the leaky cauldron. A child. Dumbledore stroked his long silver beard thoughtfully. And this is significant because, Snape said with barely contained impatience, quality invisibility cloaks are exceptionally rare. And I happen to know of one that belonged to James Potter, which should now be in your possession until his son comes of age. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly. You believe it was Harry Potter you encountered? I'm saying it's a possibility we cannot discount, especially given recent events. Snape's eyes flicked meaningfully to Dumbledore's desk drawer where the Elder Wand had previously been kept. Dumbledore was silent for a long moment, considering. It would be most concerning if young Harry were wandering London alone at 7 years old, especially under an invisibility cloak I indeed no longer possess. 8, Snape corrected automatically. Potter turned 8 at the end of July. So he did, Dumbledore agreed with a small smile. All the more reason for concern, if it was indeed Harry. The protections at his aunt and uncle's home should prevent any magical items from finding him there without my knowledge. Unless, Snape suggested carefully, the items in question are powerful enough to circumvent even your protections. Items such as, perhaps, the Deathly Hallows. The twinkle vanished from Dumbledore's eyes, replaced by something harder, more calculating. You know the legend, then. I know that you possessed the Elder Wand for decades, Snape replied. I know that James Potter's cloak was unusually powerful. And I know that both items are now missing, possibly in the hands of a child who should have no knowledge of magic for several more years. Dumbledore rose from his chair and moved to the window, gazing out at the Hogwarts grounds bathed in summer sunlight. If what you suspect is true, Severus, it changes everything. The Hallows choosing a master so young, so innocent, the implications are staggering. The boy will need protection, Snape said flatly. If the Dark Lord's remaining followers learn of this, indeed, Dumbledore turned back to face the potion's master. I believe it's time we paid a visit to Privet Drive. Discreetly, of course. We need to ascertain whether Harry is indeed in possession of the Hallows, and if so, well, we shall have to reconsider our plans for the boy's future. Snape's lip curled slightly. And if he is their master? Will you take them from him? Dumbledore's expression was unreadable. The Hallows cannot be taken unwillingly from their true master, Severus. If they have chosen Harry, there is little I or anyone else can do about it. He paused, adding softly, the question is not whether we will take them from him, but whether he is prepared for what possessing them means. As the two wizards made plans to investigate, neither was aware that miles away, the very boy they discussed was already preparing himself, already growing into powers that would soon reshape the wizarding world entirely. Harry woke on his 8th birthday to find a small, wrapped package sitting at the foot of his mattress. He stared at it in confusion. The Dursleys had never given him birthday presents. Cautiously, he reached for it, half expecting it to vanish or explode or reveal itself as a prank. But the package was solid, wrapped in emerald green paper with a silver ribbon. There was a small card attached, bearing elegant handwriting that Harry didn't recognize. To the Master of the Hallows, may this serve you well in the journey ahead. A friend. Harry's heart raced. Someone new. Someone who wasn't his parents' spirits, someone who was alive and had somehow entered the house while he slept, someone who knew he possessed the Deathly Hallows. He reached for the Elder Wand, which he kept beside him at all times now, and cast a quick detection spell his mother had taught him. Specialis Revelio, he whispered, pointing the wand at the package. The package glowed briefly with a soft blue light, magical, but not harmful, according to what his mother had explained about the spell. Still cautious, Harry unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a book bound in aged leather, with no title on the cover or spine. When he opened it, he found the pages filled with handwritten text and diagrams in the same elegant script as the card. The magic most pure, a grimoire of wandless arts and ancient powers. Harry's breath caught. This was no ordinary book, it was a handwritten grimoire of advanced magic, focusing specifically on wandless casting and ancient forms of magic that, according to the introduction, predated modern wand use entirely. Who could have sent this? And how had they known about the Hallows? Harry reached for the resurrection stone, calling his parents for guidance. When Lily and James appeared, Harry showed them the mysterious gift. Their reactions were immediate and contrasting. Lily looked alarmed, while James appeared intrigued. This is extremely advanced magic, Lily said, examining the pages as best her spiritual form could. And some of it. I've never seen spells like these, not even in the restricted section at Hogwarts. Wandless magic is rare, James added. Most wizards and witches can only manage the simplest spells without a wand, if that. But with the Elder Wand helping you learn. Should I be worried? Harry asked. Someone knows about the Hallows. Someone got into the house while I was asleep. Definitely concerning, Lily agreed. But I don't sense dark magic from the book itself. It seems genuine, a gift meant to help, not harm. The question is who sent it, James mused. And why now, on your birthday specifically? Harry flipped through more pages, fascinated despite his concerns. The book contained not just spells but philosophical discussions about the nature of magic itself, theories about how intent and will could shape raw magical energy without the focusing tool of a wand. Whoever sent it knows a lot about magic, Harry observed. And wanted me to know too. A teacher, Lily suggested. Someone who wants to guide you. Or someone who wants to use you, James countered grimly. The Master of Death would be a powerful ally, or a formidable weapon. Harry considered both possibilities. I'll be careful, he promised. I won't try anything from this book without discussing it with you first. But I think I should learn what it has to teach. If someone knows about the Hallows, if they can get to me even here, I need to be prepared. His parents couldn't argue with that logic. Whoever had sent the grimoire had already demonstrated an alarming ability to breach the Dursleys' home undetected. Harry needed every advantage he could get. Start with the basics, Lily advised. The wandless levitation and summoning sections look similar to standard spells, just without wand movements. Master those before attempting anything more complex. Harry nodded, already eager to begin. The mysterious gift had turned his birthday, previously just another day of being ignored by the Dursleys, into something special, something meaningful. Someone out there was acknowledging him, recognizing his potential, investing in his future. Whether friend or foe, they'd given Harry a new purpose, a new challenge to overcome. And Harry Potter had never backed down from a challenge. Over the next few months, Harry's magical education accelerated dramatically. The grimoire proved to be an invaluable resource, teaching him not just spells but ways of thinking about magic that transformed his understanding completely. Magic isn't just in the wand or the words, he explained excitedly to his parents one night. It's in me, in my core, my blood, my very being. The wand just helps direct it, and the words just help focus my intent. But they're tools, not the source. Lily beamed proudly. That's a concept many adult wizards never fully grasp. Under his parents' guidance, Harry mastered basic wandless magic first, summoning small objects, lighting candles, levitating feathers. The Elder Wand seemed to approve of this education, growing warmer and more responsive when Harry practiced wandless spells before returning to wand-based magic. It's like it wants me to know I don't need it, Harry observed, twirling the legendary wand between his fingers. Like it's teaching me independence. The Hallows choose their master, James reminded him. They serve you, not the other way around. A true master isn't dependent on them. By autumn, Harry had progressed to more complex wandless magic, unlocking doors, creating small illusions, even basic shields that could deflect minor physical objects. His control grew more precise, his understanding deeper. And with his expanded cupboard now serving as a comfortable magical study, he had space to practice safely away from Dursley eyes. The Dursleys themselves continued to give Harry a wide berth. Vernon's blustering had diminished to occasional grumbling, Petunia's sharp comments had become rare, and Dudley maintained a healthy distance at all times. It wasn't respect they showed Harry, but something closer to wary apprehension, as if they sensed the growing power within their home but couldn't quite identify its source. One rainy October afternoon, Harry sat cross-legged in his cupboard, practicing a particularly challenging bit of wandless magic, creating a small, controlled flame that hovered above his palm without burning him. The grimoire called it witch fire, an ancient precursor to modern fire-making spells. Concentrating intensely, Harry felt his magic gathering in his core, then flowing outward through his arm to his hand. A small blue flame sputtered to life above his palm, wavering but definitely present. I did it, he whispered triumphantly, watching the flame dance and flicker. Suddenly, Harry felt a strange sensation, like someone had walked over his grave, as the saying went. A cold shiver ran down his spine, and his scar prickled uncomfortably. The flame in his hand sputtered and died as his concentration broke. Something was wrong. Someone was watching. Harry reached for the Elder Wand and cast a detection spell he'd learned from the grimoire. Hominum Revelio, he whispered, focusing on revealing human presence nearby. The spell pulsed outward from the wand, and Harry felt it touch the expected presences: Vernon in the living room watching television, Petunia in the kitchen preparing dinner, Dudley upstairs in his room. But there was something else, something just at the edge of the property line. Two somethings, in fact. Two magical signatures that the spell identified as wizards. Harry's heart raced. Wizards, outside the house. Watching. Waiting. Had they detected his magic? Were they from the ministry his parents had mentioned, coming to punish him for underage magic? Or was it something worse, followers of Voldemort, perhaps? Carefully, Harry reached for the invisibility cloak and draped it over himself. Then, moving silently as he'd practiced countless times, he slipped out of his cupboard and through the house to the front window. Peering out through the curtains, he scanned the street. At first, he saw nothing unusual, just rain-slicked pavement and neatly trimmed hedges. Then a flicker of movement caught his eye. Across the street, partially concealed by Mrs. Figg's overgrown garden, stood two figures. One tall and silver-bearded, wearing what looked like deep purple robes beneath a muggle overcoat. The other shorter, dressed entirely in black, with greasy hair that Harry recognized immediately. Albus Dumbledore and Severus Snape. Harry's breath caught. His parents had told him about Dumbledore, the great wizard who had opposed Voldemort, who had been their leader in the fight against darkness, but who had also placed Harry with the Dursleys and was supposed to be holding both the cloak and the Elder Wand until Harry came of age. "What do I do?" Harry whispered, wishing he could call his parents for advice. But summoning their spirits now would create a magical signature the wizards would certainly detect. As if hearing his thoughts, Dumbledore's gaze shifted directly to the window where Harry stood hidden. Though Harry knew he was invisible, he could have sworn those piercing blue eyes saw right through the cloak, right through the curtains, straight to him. The old wizard raised a hand in what seemed like greeting, or perhaps warning, and then both figures vanished with a faint pop that Harry somehow heard despite the distance and the rain. They were gone, but Harry knew with absolute certainty that this wasn't the end. Dumbledore had found him. The wizarding world was closing in. And Harry needed to be ready when it did. Chapter 2, Shadows and Revelations. Harry didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind against the windows made him jump, half expecting Dumbledore to materialize in his cupboard. He kept the Elder Wand clutched in his hand, the cloak wrapped tightly around him, and the stone close by, though he resisted the urge to call his parents. "They'll be watching for magical signatures," he muttered to himself, pacing the expanded interior of his cupboard. "I need to be smart about this." By morning, no wizards had appeared to drag Harry away, but the knowledge that they were out there, that they knew where he lived, that they suspected something, changed everything. Harry could no longer afford to be careless with his magic or his movements. When Aunt Petunia rapped on his door, Harry emerged with a carefully neutral expression, determined to act normally. The Dursleys couldn't know anything was wrong. They couldn't know wizards had been watching their house. "Hurry up with breakfast," Petunia snapped. "And then you're to clean the gutters. All this autumn rain has clogged them." "Yes, Aunt Petunia," Harry replied automatically, his mind elsewhere as he cracked eggs into a pan. Cleaning the gutters turned out to be a blessing in disguise. From the top of the ladder, Harry could survey the neighborhood, checking for any sign of wizards lurking about. He saw nothing suspicious, but that didn't mean they weren't there. His detection spell the previous night had only worked within a limited range. For all he knew, magical observers could be monitoring from a distance. That evening, when he was certain the house was quiet, Harry finally called his parents. Dumbledore was here, he told them the moment their silvery forms appeared. With Snape. They were watching the house. James and Lily exchanged alarmed glances. "Did they approach you?" Lily asked urgently. "No, they just stood there. Across the street. But Dumbledore looked right at me, even though I was under the cloak. It was like he could see through it." "That's concerning," James said, running a hand through his ghostly hair. Dumbledore is incredibly powerful, and exceptionally perceptive. He's also the one person who might recognize the cloak, Lily added. He borrowed it from your father shortly before we died. Harry paced his small space. What does he want? Is he going to try to take the Hallows? I don't think so, James said slowly. Dumbledore had the Elder Wand for decades and never sought the other Hallows actively. He's not obsessed with them like others have been. But he'll definitely be curious, Lily pointed out. And concerned. An 8-year-old with the most powerful magical objects in existence. He'll want to understand how this happened. And he'll want to protect you, James added. Whatever else, Dumbledore does care about keeping you safe. Harry wasn't entirely convinced. From what his parents had told him, Dumbledore had left him with the Dursleys knowing full well they despised magic. What kind of protection was that? What should I do? Harry asked. Be more careful with obvious magic, Lily advised. Dumbledore might have detection spells around the house now. And maybe it's time to expand your horizons a bit, James suggested, with a gleam in his eye that Harry recognized as his father's mischievous side emerging. The Dursleys barely pay attention to where you are these days. With the cloak, you could explore further, learn more about the world. James. Lily admonished. Are you encouraging our 8-year-old son to wander off alone? Not alone, James countered. With the Hallows. And not aimlessly, with purpose. Harry needs to understand more than just magic. He needs to understand people, places, how the world works. He turned to Harry. The more you know about both worlds, magical and Muggle, the better prepared you'll be. Harry nodded thoughtfully. His father had a point. The cupboard had been his sanctuary, but it was also becoming a limitation. If Dumbledore and others were closing in, staying hidden might not be an option much longer. Better to explore on his terms than be caught unprepared. I'll be careful, he promised. I won't go too far at first. Lily still looked worried, but she nodded reluctantly. Just remember that the cloak doesn't make you invincible, Harry. It hides you from sight, but you can still be heard or bumped into. And there are magical ways to detect even invisible presences. I know, Mum. I'll be smart about it. As his parents' forms faded, Harry lay back on his mattress, the Elder Wand thrumming gently in his hand. Tomorrow, he decided, he would begin expanding his world. The Hallows had chosen him, and hiding in a cupboard wasn't going to help him understand why. Harry's first expedition beyond Privet Drive was to the local library. It was a logical choice, quiet, full of information, and a place the Dursleys would never voluntarily visit. With his cloak tucked into his backpack and the stone in his pocket, Harry set off early Saturday morning, telling Aunt Petunia he was going to the park. Be back by dinner, she said disinterestedly, barely looking up from her gardening magazine. The little whinging library was a modest brick building with large windows and a children's section that Harry had visited a few times on school trips. Today, however, he bypassed the picture books and headed straight for the reference section. If he was going to understand the world better, he needed to start with facts. For several hours, Harry absorbed information about geography, basic physics, world history, subjects the Dursleys' neglect and his primary school's limited resources had left gaps in. He was particularly interested in mythology and folklore, searching for mentions of objects like the Hallows. Most accounts of magical items were obviously fiction, but occasionally he'd find descriptions that made him wonder if the author had glimpsed something real. Those are pretty advanced books for someone your age. Harry looked up, startled. A girl about his age stood nearby, watching him with curious brown eyes. Her bushy hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she carried a stack of books that seemed almost too heavy for her small frame. I like learning, Harry replied, instinctively closing the book on Celtic mythology he'd been reading. Me too, the girl said, brightening. She set her stack down on the table and extended her hand. I'm Hermione Granger. Harry Potter, he replied, shaking her hand. Are you new? I haven't seen you at school. I go to St. Gregory's, Harry explained. My aunt and uncle live on Privet Drive. Oh, I'm at Brentwood Academy. That's why we haven't met. She gestured to his books. What are you researching? Harry hesitated. Something about this girl made him want to trust her, but years with the Dursleys had taught him caution. Just interested in old stories. Myths and legends and stuff. Like King Arthur. I love those stories, Hermione said enthusiastically. Have you read The Once and Future King? It's brilliant. Before Harry knew it, they were deep in conversation about books and legends, carefully steered away from anything too obviously magical. Hermione was startlingly intelligent and spoke with a confident precision that Harry found both intimidating and refreshing. My parents say I'm too serious, she confessed after they'd been talking for nearly an hour. The other kids at school think I'm weird because I'd rather read than play their games. I know what that's like, Harry said with feeling. Being different. Hermione studied him thoughtfully. Yes, I suppose you would. There's something unusual about you, Harry Potter. Harry tensed. Could she sense his magic somehow? Was she a witch? It's a good unusual, she added quickly, misinterpreting his reaction. Like you know things most kids don't. Like you've seen more of the world. Harry relaxed slightly. My life is pretty ordinary, actually. I don't think so. Hermione's gaze was disconcertingly perceptive. But that's okay. Everyone has secrets. The conversation shifted to safer topics, and by the time Harry realized he needed to head home, he'd made his first real friend. They agreed to meet at the library again the following weekend, and Harry walked back to Privet Drive feeling lighter than he had in days. The threat of Dumbledore and the wizarding world still loomed, but somehow, having a friend, a normal, non-magical friend, made it all seem more manageable. What Harry didn't notice was the tall figure watching from across the street as he left the library, silver beard tucked into a muggle overcoat, blue eyes following the boy with a mixture of concern and curiosity. Over the next few weeks, Harry's friendship with Hermione flourished. They met regularly at the library, sharing books and ideas. Harry was careful never to reveal his magic or the Hallows, but he found that having someone to talk to, someone his own age, who didn't think he was a freak, was almost as magical as any spell. Hermione was fiercely intelligent, with a memory that bordered on photographic and a thirst for knowledge that matched Harry's own. But she was also lonely, isolated by her intelligence just as Harry had been isolated by his magic. The girls at school call me a know-it-all, she confided one day as they shared a packet of crisps outside the library. They hide my books and pull my hair. Harry's hand tightened around the elder wand in his pocket. That's awful. It's just how children are, Hermione shrugged, trying to seem unbothered. My mum says they're intimidated by smart girls. That doesn't make it right, Harry insisted. He knew all too well what it felt like to be bullied. Next time it happens, you should. He trailed off, catching himself before suggesting she use magic she didn't have. Instead, he switched tactics. You should stand up to them. Not by fighting, but by showing them they can't make you feel bad about being smart. Hermione gave him a small smile. That's easy to say, harder to do. But you're right. She studied him curiously. How did you get so wise, Harry Potter? Harry thought of his parents' guidance, of the lessons he'd learned through magic and the Hallows. Experience, I guess. As November turned to December, Harry began venturing further from Privet Drive. With the cloak's protection, he explored neighboring towns, visited museums in London, even snuck into cinemas to watch films the Dursleys would never have taken him to see. Each expedition expanded his understanding of the world and honed his skills at moving unseen. He was careful to use magic sparingly outside his cupboard, aware that Dumbledore might still be monitoring him. But occasionally, when truly needed, he would find a secluded spot and practice the wandless techniques from the grimoire. To his delight, his control was improving steadily. He could now summon objects from several meters away, create illusions that lasted for minutes, and even perform simple transfigurations without the Elder Wand. One snowy afternoon in mid-December, Harry and Hermione were huddled in a quiet corner of the library, discussing a book on theoretical physics that Hermione had convinced Harry to try. So you see, she was explaining animatedly, according to quantum theory, particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until they're observed. It's called superposition. Harry nodded slowly, his mind making connections to magic that he couldn't share. So things only become definite when someone's watching them? In simplified terms, yes, Hermione beamed, pleased that he was following. It's like the universe is full of possibilities until observation collapses them into one reality. That's kind of how Harry caught himself just in time. How my imagination works. Like anything could happen until it actually does. Hermione looked at him oddly. You were going to say something else. No, I wasn't, Harry said, too quickly. Yes, you were. You do that sometimes, start to say something, then change it. She set her book down. Harry, are you hiding something? Harry's heart raced. Hermione was too perceptive for her own good. Everyone has secrets, he reminded her, echoing her words from their first meeting. True, she conceded. But friends trust each other with the important ones. Before Harry could formulate a response, a commotion near the library entrance distracted them. A tall man in a shabby overcoat had entered, shaking snow from his graying hair. What caught Harry's attention wasn't the man's appearance, but the fact that he could sense magic emanating from him. A wizard. In the Muggle library. Harry. What's wrong? Hermione asked, noticing his sudden tension. Nothing, he said softly, eyes fixed on the newcomer. Just remembered I need to be home soon. The wizard scanned the library, his gaze eventually landing on Harry. With a small nod of recognition, he approached their table. Hello, Harry, the man said pleasantly. His voice was quiet but carried a weight of authority. Quite the selection of books you have there. Harry stiffened, instinctively moving his hand toward the Elder Wand in his pocket. Do I know you? Not yet, the man replied with a tired smile. My name is Remus Lupin. I was a friend of your parents. Hermione looked between them, confused. Harry. It's okay, Harry told her, though he wasn't at all sure it was. His parents had mentioned a Remus Lupin, one of his father's best friends, but they'd also warned that not everyone who claimed to know them could be trusted. Perhaps we could speak privately. Lupin suggested, glancing at Hermione. Anything you want to say to me, you can say in front of Hermione, Harry replied firmly, unwilling to be separated from his friend in case this was a trap. Lupin raised an eyebrow but nodded. As you wish. I've been asked to check on you, to make sure you're adjusting well. Adjusting to what? Hermione asked. Life in general, Lupin replied smoothly. Harry's situation is somewhat unique. Harry narrowed his eyes. Who asked you to check on me? An old headmaster we both know of, Lupin said meaningfully. He's concerned about some items that have gone missing. Items that might have found their way to you. So Dumbledore was sending emissaries now. Harry's mind raced, considering his options. The library was public enough that he wasn't in immediate danger, but isolated enough that a wizard could easily cast spells without Muggle notice. I don't know what you're talking about, Harry said, keeping his voice steady. I'm just a normal kid reading books with my friend. Lupin's gaze was penetrating, but kind. Harry, no one's going to take anything from you. But these possessions carry significant responsibilities. Dumbledore merely wants to ensure you understand what you've acquired. Hermione was following the conversation with increasing confusion. Harry, what is he talking about? What possessions? Harry made a split-second decision. Hermione, I need to talk to Mr. Lupin alone for a minute. Will you be okay? She frowned but nodded. "I'll be right over there," she said, pointing to a nearby shelf. "Where I can see you." When she'd stepped away, Harry leaned forward. "Tell Dumbledore that the Hallows chose me. I didn't seek them out, I didn't steal them. They came to me." Lupin's eyes widened slightly, confirmation that Harry's guess about missing items was correct. "So it's true," he murmured. "You have all three. And I'm not giving them up," Harry added, a note of steel entering his young voice. "They're mine now." "No one's suggesting you should give them up, Harry," Lupin said carefully. "But you're very young to wield such power. Dumbledore is concerned for your safety. The same Dumbledore who left me with people who hate magic. Who kept my father's cloak from me. Who was planning to wait until I was 11 to tell me anything about who I really am." Harry couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. Lupin winced. "It's complicated. There were protections in place, considerations you might not fully understand." "I understand enough," Harry replied. "The Hallows are teaching me what I need to know. My parents are guiding me." "Your parents?" Lupin looked alarmed. "Harry, what exactly have you been doing with the Resurrection Stone?" Harry realized he might have said too much. "That's my business. Tell Dumbledore that I'm fine. I don't need his help or his concern. When I'm ready to enter the wizarding world properly, I will." Lupin studied him for a long moment. "You remind me so much of both your parents right now, James's defiance and Lily's determination. But Harry, there are things happening in the magical world that you should be aware of. Movements, whispers. The disappearance of the Elder Wand has not gone unnoticed." "What kind of whispers?" Harry asked, his curiosity overcoming his caution. "Rumors that the Dark Lord's followers are becoming active again. That something is stirring." Lupin leaned closer. "The Hallows are powerful, Harry, but they also make you a target." Before Harry could respond, Hermione returned, her patience evidently exhausted. "I've given you plenty of time," she announced. "What's going on?" Lupin straightened up and smiled politely. "Just catching up. I knew Harry's parents years ago and haven't seen him since he was a baby." He turned back to Harry. "Think about what I said. If you ever need help or just want to talk, I can be reached through our mutual acquaintance." He placed a card on the table, an ordinary Muggle business card with just a phone number, and then nodded to them both before leaving the library. The moment he was gone, Hermione rounded on Harry. "Okay, what was that really about? And don't say nothing, because I'm not an idiot." Harry sighed. Hermione deserved some kind of explanation, but the full truth was impossible. "It's complicated. My parents died when I was a baby, and there are legal issues about who should have taken care of me. Mr. Lupin was checking up on me for someone who thinks they should have had more say in my upbringing. It wasn't entirely a lie, just a Muggle-friendly version of the truth." Hermione didn't look fully convinced, but she nodded slowly. "Is that why you never talk about your home life? Are your aunt and uncle not treating you properly?" Harry hadn't realized how perceptive Hermione had been about his reluctance to discuss the Dursleys. "They're not warm people. But I manage." "You could tell someone, you know," Hermione said earnestly. "If they're mistreating you." "It's fine, really," Harry assured her, touched by her concern. "I can take care of myself." Hermione looked like she wanted to pursue the matter but instead gathered her books. "I should go. My parents will be waiting." She hesitated, then added, "Harry, whatever secret you're keeping, and I know you are keeping one, just remember that real friends accept each other, weird parts and all." As she left, Harry felt a pang of guilt. Hermione was the first real friend he'd ever had, and he was hiding the most important part of himself from her. But how could he possibly tell her about magic, about the Hallows, about who he really was? She'd think he was crazy, or worse, she'd believe him and be drawn into a dangerous world she wasn't prepared for. For now, at least, some secrets had to remain secret. Even from friends. Albus Dumbledore was not a man accustomed to feeling uncertain. Throughout his long life, he had faced dark wizards, solved magical mysteries, and navigated political complexities with confidence. But as he paced his office at Hogwarts, waiting for Remus Lupin's return, uncertainty gnawed at him like never before. The disappearance of the Elder Wand had been shocking enough. Dumbledore had possessed it for decades, defeated Grindelwald with it, established himself as perhaps the greatest wizard of the age with its assistance. He had never sought the other Hallows actively, content to study the cloak when James Potter loaned it to him and theorize about the stone's location. But now, if his suspicions were correct, all three Hallows had united under the ownership of an 8-year-old boy. A boy with no formal magical training, no understanding of the wizarding world's complexities, no awareness of the target such power would place on his back. The fireplace flared green, and Remus Lupin stepped through, brushing soot from his shabby robes. "You found him?" Dumbledore asked immediately. "Yes," Lupin confirmed, settling into the chair across from Dumbledore's desk. "At a Muggle library with a young girl, a friend, it seems. And you were right. He has the Hallows, all three of them. He as much as confirmed it." Dumbledore's fingers steepled beneath his chin. "Did he say how they came to him?" "He claims they chose him," Lupin replied. "That they came to him of their own accord." "Fascinating," Dumbledore murmured. "The Hallows have never been known to seek out a master before. They've always been sought, fought over, stolen." "There's something else," Lupin added hesitantly. "He mentioned his parents are guiding him. I believe he's using the resurrection stone to speak with James and Lily." Dumbledore's eyebrows rose sharply. "That is concerning. The stone's power is seductive but dangerous. The spirits it recalls are not truly the people they represent, merely shadows, echoes." "He seemed quite adamant that he doesn't need help," Lupin continued. "He's bitter about being left with the Dursleys, about the cloak being kept from him. He doesn't trust you, Albus." "Understandable," Dumbledore sighed. "I made decisions I believed were for his protection, but from his perspective, I can see how they would appear otherwise." "What now? Do we continue to watch him?" Dumbledore nodded slowly. "We must. But discreetly. If word spreads that Harry Potter possesses the Deathly Hallows." He didn't need to finish the thought. Both men knew the danger such knowledge would present, not just from those who coveted the Hallows for their power, but from the scattered remnants of Voldemort's followers who would see Harry as both a symbolic and literal target. "There's one more thing," Lupin said. "I sensed something when I was near him. A magical signature that wasn't entirely his own. Something darker." Dumbledore's expression grew grave. "The Hallows carry their own magic, their own history. But we must also consider the connection Harry shares with Voldemort through his scar. If that connection is strengthening as Harry's magic develops, is there a risk to the boy?" "There is always risk, Remus. But we must balance protection against interference. The Hallows have chosen Harry. Attempting to separate them now could cause more harm than good." Dumbledore rose and moved to the window. "For now, we watch and wait. But prepare yourself, events are accelerating faster than I anticipated. Harry Potter may enter our world long before his Hogwarts letter arrives." Miles away, in a hidden cottage on the coast of Devon, Nicholas Flamel looked up from his alchemical workbench with a start. The detection potion he had been brewing for months had suddenly changed color, shifting from silver to gold in an instant. "Perenelle," he called to his wife of over 6 centuries. "It's happened. The Hallows have united." Perenelle Flamel entered the workshop, her ageless face curious. "After all this time? Are you certain?" "The potion doesn't lie," Nicholas replied, studying the golden liquid with fascination. "Somewhere in Britain, the 3 Deathly Hallows now serve a single master." "Albus?" Perenelle asked. No, Nicholas shook his head. He possessed only the wand, and my sources tell me it vanished months ago. This is someone new. He waved his wand over the potion, which formed into a swirling map of Britain, a bright point of light glowing near London. Someone young, by the magical signature. Untrained, but immensely powerful. The stone could lead them to the elixir, Perenelle said softly, voicing the concern they both felt. The Philosopher's Stone and the Resurrection Stone, two magical objects with power over life and death, two targets for those who feared mortality. Or they could become allies in protecting it, Nicholas countered. The Master of Death might have very different views on immortality than those who seek the elixir out of fear. Perenelle studied the glowing point on the map. What will you do? Observe, for now, Nicholas decided. But I've waited centuries to meet a true master of the Hallows. I don't intend to wait much longer. He touched the map with his wand, causing the glowing point to expand, revealing more precise location details. Little whinging, Surrey. How very ordinary for something so extraordinary. Christmas approached, bringing a temporary break in Harry's meetings with Hermione as her family traveled to France for the holidays. Harry found he missed her company more than he expected, but used the time to intensify his magical studies. The encounter with Lupin had shaken him, making the threat from the wizarding world feel more immediate. The Dursleys, as usual, included Harry in Christmas celebrations only to the extent necessary to maintain appearances. He received Dudley's old socks and a wire hanger from his aunt and uncle, while Dudley himself tore through dozens of expensive gifts. Harry pretended indifference, knowing that the real gifts awaited him in his cupboard, his parents' company, the Hallows' power, and the knowledge he was gaining daily. On Christmas Eve, after the Dursleys had gone to bed, Harry called his parents and showed them the grimoire he'd received on his birthday, which he'd been steadily working through. "I've mastered the basic wandless section," he told them proudly. "And I've started on the elemental manipulations." "That's advanced magic, Harry," James said, looking impressed. "Most adult wizards never get that far with wandless casting." "The book makes it clearer than most texts would," Lily observed. "Whoever wrote it has a deep understanding of magical theory." She hesitated, then added, "Have you given any more thought to who might have sent it?" Harry shook his head. "Not really. After meeting Mr. Lupin, I wondered if maybe Dumbledore sent it, but that doesn't make sense. Why would he give me more magical knowledge if he's worried about me having the Hallows?" "It's a puzzle," James agreed. "But speaking of gifts." He glanced at Lily, who nodded encouragingly. "We have something to tell you. A sort of Christmas present, though not one we can wrap." Harry looked between them curiously. "What is it?" "When we were alive," Lily began, "we set up a trust vault for you at Gringotts, the Wizarding Bank. It contains gold for your education and expenses until you come of age at 17, when you'll gain access to the main Potter family vault." "I have money?" Harry asked, surprised. The Dursleys had always made him feel like a burden, a charity case they'd been saddled with. "Quite a bit," James confirmed with a grin. "The Potters are an old family. Not the wealthiest in Britain, but comfortable. You'll never have to worry about money, Harry." "But I can't access it until I go to Diagon Alley, right?" Harry asked, thinking practically. "And I can't do that without being recognized." "Well, that's the thing," James continued. "There might be a way. The goblins who run Gringotts don't particularly care about wizarding politics or fame. They care about gold and magical ownership. And the Hallows, they create a magical signature that identifies you as their master. What James is suggesting," Lily explained, "is that you might be able to contact Gringotts directly. The goblins have methods of verifying magical signatures without you needing to appear in person." Harry's mind raced with possibilities. Money meant freedom, options beyond what the Dursleys provided or what he could access through his limited magical abilities. "How do I contact them?" he asked eagerly. "That's the tricky part," James admitted. "You'd need an owl, or access to the Floo network, or, a soft tapping at the cupboard door interrupted him. Harry froze, his hand automatically reaching for the Elder Wand. The Dursleys never knocked on his cupboard, they banged or yelled. And they should all be asleep anyway. The tapping came again, more insistent. "Harry," Lily whispered, "be careful." Wand ready, Harry cracked open the cupboard door. On the floor outside sat a small, wrapped package and an envelope addressed in emerald ink, "Mr. H. Potter, the cupboard under the stairs 4, Privet Drive, Little Whinging Surrey." With his free hand, Harry cautiously picked up the envelope and package, then quickly retreated into his cupboard, securing the door behind him. "What is it?" James asked, peering at the items. "I don't know," Harry replied, casting a detection spell on both. Like the grimoire before them, they registered as magical but not harmful. The seal on the envelope bore an ornate letter F, pressed into dark red wax. Breaking the seal, Harry unfolded a letter written in elegant, old-fashioned script. "Dear Mr. Potter, I hope this letter finds you well on this Christmas Eve. My name is Nicholas Flamel, an alchemist and researcher of magical artifacts. It has come to my attention that you have recently become the master of certain significant objects I have studied for many centuries. Please be assured that I have no interest in relieving you of these items. Rather, I wish to offer my assistance in understanding their true nature and potential. The enclosed gift is a small token of my sincerity, a communication mirror that will allow you to speak with me directly should you wish to do so. Simply hold the mirror and speak my name, and I shall respond at my earliest convenience. Regarding your current predicament with accessing your inheritance, I have taken the liberty of arranging a connection with Gringotts on your behalf. The mirror can also serve as a secure communication channel with your account manager. The choice to respond is entirely yours. I merely offer the wisdom of experience to one who has been chosen for a remarkable destiny." With respect and goodwill, Nicholas Flamel. Harry stared at the letter in shock, then at his parents, whose expressions mirrored his own surprise. "Nicholas Flamel?" Harry asked. "Is he real?" "Very real," Lily confirmed, looking stunned. "He's the creator of the Philosopher's Stone, the only known substance that can produce the elixir of life, which grants immortality. He's over 600 years old. And he's just, writing to me. Sending me gifts." Harry unwrapped the package to reveal a small handheld mirror in an ornate silver frame, decorated with the same symbols that appeared on the Resurrection Stone. "This is significant, Harry," James said seriously. "Flamel rarely involves himself in wizarding affairs anymore. He's practically a legend. But why would he contact me?" Harry wondered, turning the mirror over in his hands. "What does he want with the Hallows?" "Knowledge, probably," Lily speculated. "A mind like his, that's lived for centuries, he values understanding above all else. Can we trust him?" Harry asked, the crucial question. His parents exchanged thoughtful looks. "Flamel has no known connection to Dumbledore or the Ministry," James said slowly. "He's independent, follows his own path. All historical accounts describe him as ethical in his work," Lily added. "He's never used the stone for anything but his own and his wife's immortality, never tried to create an army of immortals or sell the elixir." Harry studied the mirror thoughtfully. "It would be useful to talk to someone who knows about the Hallows, someone alive who can help me understand them better." He looked up at his parents. "No offense." "None taken," James chuckled. "We're limited in what we can do for you, Harry. A living mentor could be valuable, as long as you remain cautious." "I think I'll contact him," Harry decided. "But not tonight. I want to research him more first, make sure this isn't some kind of trap." His parents nodded approvingly. "That's wise," Lily said. "In the meantime, Happy Christmas, Harry. We wish we could give you more than just advice and love." "That's enough," Harry assured them, and he meant it. Despite everything, the Dursleys, the lurking threat of Voldemort's return, the complications of possessing the Hallows, this was already the best Christmas he'd ever had. The new year brought changes to Harry's routine. With Flamel's communication mirror, he was able to contact Gringotts and verify his identity through a complex magical procedure involving the Elder Wand and a drop of blood on the mirror's surface. To his amazement, the goblins arranged for a magical pouch to be delivered, one connected directly to his vault, allowing him to withdraw reasonable sums without visiting the bank in person. Convenient bit of magic, Harry commented to his reflection as he tested the pouch, requesting £10 in Muggle currency. The coins appeared instantly inside the leather bag. Goblin magic is both practical and powerful, Flamel's voice replied from the mirror. Harry had finally contacted the alchemist a week after Christmas, and they'd spoken several times since. They view wealth as an extension of the self, and their magic reflects that philosophy. Harry found Flamel to be a fascinating mentor, knowledgeable without being condescending, curious but respectful of Harry's boundaries. Unlike Dumbledore, who seemed to want to control Harry's access to the Hallows, Flamel simply wanted to understand how and why they had chosen such a young master. In all my centuries of research, Flamel told Harry during one of their conversations, I've never encountered the Hallows behaving as they have with you. They've always been sought, never seeking. My parents think it has something to do with the prophecy, Harry replied, referring to what James and Lily had shared about the prediction that had led Voldemort to target their family. Or with surviving the killing curse. Perhaps, Flamel mused. But I wonder if it's simpler than that. The Hallows respond to worthiness, not just to power or bloodlines. Perhaps they sensed in you what they've sought in a master all along, not someone who desires mastery over death, but someone who accepts it as part of the natural order while standing firmly on the side of life. With access to money and Flamel's guidance, Harry's world expanded dramatically. He purchased proper clothes that actually fit, hidden beneath his Dursley-provided rags when at home. He bought books on both magical and Muggle subjects, building a small library in his expanded cupboard. He even managed to acquire a few basic potion ingredients and tools, which Flamel helped him use to brew simple concoctions. The Dursleys noticed some of the changes in Harry, his improved posture, his quiet confidence, but attributed it to his growing friendship with that Granger girl rather than suspecting anything magical. In truth, Harry's friendship with Hermione was deepening, though the secret of his magical nature remained between them. Or so he thought until a frosty February day when Hermione confronted him in their usual corner of the library. Harry, she said without preamble, setting a large book on the table between them. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Harry tensed, recognizing the determined set of her jaw. Okay. She opened the book to a marked page and pushed it toward him. It was a volume on unexplained phenomena, open to a chapter about telekinesis and other supposed psychic abilities. Can you do things? She asked bluntly. Things that can't be explained. Things like, moving objects without touching them, or knowing things you shouldn't know, or making things happen. Harry's heart pounded. This was it, the moment he'd both dreaded and, if he was honest with himself, secretly longed for. The chance to share his true self with his only friend. Why do you ask? He hedged, buying time to think. Because I can, Hermione whispered, her eyes wide and earnest. Not all the time, and not perfectly, but, watch. She stared intently at her pencil case, and after a moment of visible concentration, the zipper slowly opened by itself. It wasn't smooth or fast, but it was undeniably happening without physical contact. Harry gaped, not at the display of magic, which was impressive for an untrained Muggle-born witch, but at the revelation itself. Hermione was magical. Hermione was a witch. You're not surprised, she observed keenly. You're shocked, but not at what I can do. You knew this was possible. Harry took a deep breath. The statute of secrecy technically forbade him from revealing the wizarding world to Muggles, but Hermione wasn't a Muggle. She was a witch who would eventually receive a Hogwarts letter. Telling her now was just, accelerating the inevitable. Yes, he admitted finally. I can do things too. More than that, actually. He glanced around to ensure they were alone in their corner, then held his hand over her pencil case and whispered, Wingardium Leviosa. The entire case rose smoothly into the air, hovered for a moment, then settled gently back onto the table. Hermione's eyes widened to the size of saucers. You can control it. You know how to make it work reliably. It's not telekinesis, Harry explained quietly. It's magic. Real magic. And you're not weird or crazy for having it, you're a witch. A witch? Hermione repeated, looking both startled and intrigued by the term. And you're a wizard, Harry supplied. We're magical people, born with the ability to use and control magic through spells, potions, magical objects, all sorts of ways. But that's impossible, Hermione protested, even as her expression said she desperately wanted to believe it. Magic isn't real. It defies all scientific principles. No, it follows its own principles, Harry corrected. Different laws, different rules, but consistent ones. That's why there are spells with specific words and movements, they focus magical energy in particular ways to achieve specific results. For the next hour, huddled in their secluded corner, Harry explained everything, well, almost everything. He told Hermione about the wizarding world, about Hogwarts, about how Muggle-born witches and witches were discovered and invited to attend the school when they turned 11. He explained about his parents being magical, about their murder by a dark wizard, about how he'd grown up with his Muggle relatives. What he didn't explain was the Hallows, the prophecy, or his ability to speak with his dead parents. Those secrets were too dangerous, too personal to share just yet. Hermione absorbed it all with a mixture of disbelief and fascination. So in 2 years, I'll get a letter inviting me to this school. And I'll learn proper magic. If you're patient, Harry said with a grin. Or I could teach you some basics now. Her eyes lit up. You would do that? But wait, you said underage wizards aren't supposed to use magic outside school. Won't you get in trouble? Harry shrugged. It's complicated. Let's just say I have ways around those restrictions. But we'd need to be careful, practice somewhere private. My house, Hermione suggested immediately. My parents work late on Thursdays. We could use my bedroom, it's on the 2nd floor, away from the street. And so began a new phase in their friendship. Every Thursday afternoon, Harry would visit Hermione's house, a comfortable, middle-class home that smelled of books and the mint toothpaste her dentist parents favored. In the privacy of her bedroom, with the curtains drawn, Harry would teach her the basic magical theory his parents and Flamel had taught him, along with simple spells she could practice with Harry's supervision. Hermione proved to be an exceptional student, absorbing magical concepts with the same voracious intelligence she applied to everything else. Without a wand, her practical progress was limited, but her theoretical understanding advanced rapidly. It's all so logical, she marveled one afternoon after successfully levitating a pencil without Harry's help. Different from Muggle science, but logical in its own way. Energy directed through will and intent, shaped by words and movements. Exactly, Harry agreed, pleased with her insight. That's why some wizards can eventually cast without speaking, or even without wands in simple cases. The words and tools are training wheels, the real power comes from the witch or wizard's magical core and their ability to direct it. February turned to March, and as spring began to green the world outside, Harry felt a similar blooming within himself. Having Hermione to share his magical world with, even just a part of it, made him feel less isolated, more connected to the person he was becoming. But the shadow on the horizon that Harry had sensed months ago was growing darker. His scar began to hurt more frequently, brief stabbing pains that came without warning. Sometimes he thought he could hear whispers at the edge of his perception, hissing voices speaking words he couldn't quite catch. Flamel noticed his distraction during one of their mirror conversations. Your thoughts seem elsewhere today, young Harry. Harry hesitated, then decided to confide in his mentor. My scar has been hurting. And I hear things sometimes. Whispers. Flamel's ancient face grew serious. The scar from Voldemort's attack. This is concerning. Such a mark, created by such dark magic, might form connections we don't fully understand. My parents think it connects me to Voldemort somehow, Harry admitted. They believe he's not truly gone, that he'll try to return someday. A reasonable theory, Flamel agreed gravely. The manner of his defeat was unprecedented. No one truly knows what became of his essence, his being. He studied Harry through the mirror. These sensations, are they growing stronger? Harry nodded slowly. And more frequent. Then we must prepare you, Flamel decided. The Hallows offer protection, but you must understand how to use them effectively. The Elder Wand is not merely a tool for greater spell power, it can be a channel for the deepest forms of defensive magic, magic rooted in sacrifice and love. Like the protection my mother gave me? Precisely. Flamel's eyes gleamed with scholarly enthusiasm despite the serious subject. Lily Potter's sacrifice created a shield of love around you, powerful enough to reflect the killing curse. The Elder Wand, in the hands of its true master, can amplify and extend such protections. Over the next few weeks, under Flamel's guidance, Harry began studying more advanced defensive magic, shield charms, counter curses, even rudimentary occlumency to protect his mind from external influence. The Elder Wand seemed eager for this training, warming pleasantly in Harry's hand during practice and guiding his movements subtly when he struggled with a particular spell. It was during one of these practice sessions in mid-April, alone in his cupboard with the Hallows arrayed before him, that Harry felt it, a sudden, violent stabbing pain in his scar, worse than any before. He gasped, clutching his forehead as images flashed through his mind, a dark forest, a hooded figure, a unicorn lying dead on the ground, silver blood pooling beneath it. And a voice, high and cold, "The boy has what I seek, the wand, the stone, the cloak, find him." The vision ended as suddenly as it had begun, leaving Harry trembling and sweating in his cupboard. This wasn't just a pain or a whisper, this was a connection, a glimpse into something happening far away. Voldemort, or what remained of him, was active, hunting, aware of the Hallows, and somehow, aware of Harry. He needed to tell someone, needed advice. But his parents would worry, might even suggest he surrender the Hallows for safekeeping. Flamel might understand better, but even he might recommend caution over the confrontation Harry sensed was coming. No, this was his burden, his destiny. The Hallows had chosen him for a reason, had prepared him for this moment. Whatever was coming, Harry would face it head-on. The threat materialized sooner than Harry expected. The very next day, walking home from school, Harry sensed someone following him. Not just anyone, someone magical, with a dark, oily aura that made his skin crawl. Slipping his hand into his pocket, he gripped the Elder Wand, ready to defend himself if necessary. The presence followed him all the way to Privet Drive but didn't approach. That night, Harry set protective wards around the house, simple ones that Flamel had taught him, designed to alert him if anyone with magical intent crossed the property line. Those wards blared to life at 3 a.m, jolting Harry awake. Someone was here, no, two someones. Two magical signatures, both dark, both powerful, both moving stealthily toward the house. Harry didn't hesitate. He grabbed all 3 Hallows, slipped on the cloak, and silently opened his cupboard door. The Dursleys slept on, oblivious to the danger approaching their home. Harry considered waking them but decided against it, they'd be more hindrance than help, and might even prevent him from using magic effectively. Instead, he moved to the kitchen and slipped out the back door into the garden. From there, he could see them, 2 hooded figures moving across the lawn, wands extended. Death Eaters, Harry guessed from his parents' descriptions. Voldemort's followers, come for the boy who lived and the Hallows he now possessed. Harry had 2 choices, run or confront them. Running might lead them away from the Dursleys but would only delay the inevitable. Sooner or later, he would have to fight. Better to do it on his terms, with the element of surprise. Still invisible beneath the cloak, Harry circled around behind the intruders. He could hear them whispering now, their voices low and urgent. "The wards are down," one hissed. Dumbledore's protections failed the moment the boy accepted the Hallows. The Dark Lord was right. "Find the boy," the other replied. "Kill the Muggles if they interfere. But Potter and the Hallows must be taken alive." Harry's blood ran cold. They were here for him, just as he'd feared. And they intended to kill the Dursleys without hesitation. Despite everything the Dursleys had done, the neglect, the cruelty, the lies, Harry couldn't let them die. They were still his family, still under his protection whether they knew it or not. Decision made, Harry stepped out from behind a garden shed, removed the cloak, and called out, "Looking for me?" The Death Eaters whirled, wands raised. One wore a silver mask that gleamed in the moonlight, the other's face was hidden in the shadow of his hood. "Potter," the masked one breathed. "So the rumors are true. You've taken the Hallows." "They weren't taken," Harry replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "They were given. And they won't work for you, no matter what your master promises." Bold words for a child, the hooded one sneered. "But the Dark Lord does not seek to wield the Hallows himself. He merely wishes to ensure they aren't used against him when he returns." "When he returns?" Harry repeated. "You mean if he returns?" "From what I've heard, there's not much left of Voldemort to return." Both Death Eaters flinched at the name. "You dare speak his name?" the masked one snarled. "You'll learn respect, boy, before we deliver you to him." Harry raised the Elder Wand. "I'm not going anywhere with you." The Death Eaters laughed, a cold sound that carried in the night air. "What do you think you're going to do, child? You've had the wand for months at most. We've practiced the dark arts for decades." "Then you should probably run," Harry suggested, channeling his father's defiant spirit. "Because I'd hate to embarrass you." With a roar of rage, the masked Death Eater slashed his wand through the air. Crucio! Harry was ready. "Protego!" he shouted, pouring his will into the shield charm Flammel had taught him. The Elder Wand amplified the spell beyond anything Harry had managed before, creating a solid blue barrier that the unforgivable curse splashed against harmlessly. Both Death Eaters faltered, clearly shocked that a child had blocked such a powerful curse. Harry pressed his advantage, remembering Flammel's advice about taking initiative in magical combat. Expelliarmus, he cast at the masked figure, following immediately with Incarcerus, toward the hooded one. The disarming spell struck true, sending the first Death Eater's wand flying into the darkness. The binding spell narrowly missed the second, who dove aside with a curse. "Enough games," the hooded Death Eater growled, slashing his wand in a complex pattern. Sectum Sempra. A jet of purple light shot toward Harry, who instinctively dropped and rolled aside. The curse hit the garden shed behind him, slicing deep gashes in the wood as if invisible swords were cutting it. Harry scrambled back to his feet, his mind racing. He needed to end this quickly, before the commotion woke the Dursleys or attracted attention from neighbors. Remembering a spell from the grimoire, Harry focused his intent and called out, "Terrae motus." The ground beneath the Death Eater's feet trembled, then buckled violently, sending them staggering. The wandless one fell hard, while the hooded figure struggled to maintain his balance. Petrificus totalis. Harry cast at the fallen Death Eater, freezing him in place. The remaining Death Eater snarled in fury and unleashed a barrage of curses, cutting hexes, bone breakers, even a sickly yellow spell that Harry recognized from Flammel's warnings as a organ-liquefying curse. Harry dodged what he could and blocked the rest, the Elder Wand practically singing in his hand as it channeled his defensive magic. But he was still an 8-year-old boy facing an adult dark wizard. His stamina wouldn't last forever. He needed to end this. In a desperate gambit, Harry flung the resurrection stone toward the Death Eater's feet. As the wizard glanced down reflexively, Harry cast a powerful stunning spell directly at his chest. The red bolt struck home, and the hooded figure collapsed unconscious to the ground. Breathing hard, Harry surveyed the scene, 2 Death Eaters neutralized, the garden damaged but reparable, and miraculously, the Dursleys still asleep inside. The wards around the property had contained the magical signatures and sounds from Muggle detection. He retrieved the stone, relief flooding through him as his fingers closed around the smooth black surface. Then he turned his attention to the fallen Death Eaters. He should contact someone, Flamel, Dumbledore, even that Lupin person, but before he could decide, a slow clapping sound broke the night's silence. "Impressive, Mr. Potter. Most impressive." Harry whirled, wand raised, to find Nicholas Flamel standing at the edge of the garden, looking remarkably spry for a 600-year-old alchemist. His ancient eyes twinkled with something between pride and concern. "Flamel?" Harry gasped. Why are you here?" "I've been monitoring you more closely than you realized," Flamel admitted, approaching to examine the stunned Death Eaters. "When I sensed dark wizards breaching my secondary wards, the ones I placed after our first communication, I came immediately." He prodded the masked figure with his foot. "Though it seems my intervention was unnecessary. You handled the situation quite capably." "They were coming for the Hallows," Harry explained, still catching his breath. "And for me. They mentioned Voldemort returning." "Yes," Flamel sighed. "The rumors have been growing stronger. Something stirs in the darker corners of the magical world." He waved his wand over the fallen Death Eaters, binding them with conjured ropes. "These 2 will be delivered to the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, though I suspect they won't reveal much under questioning." "What happens now?" Harry asked, suddenly feeling every bit his 8 years. The adrenaline was fading, leaving him shaky and uncertain. Flamel regarded him with kind but serious eyes. "Now, young Master of Death, you have a choice to make. These attacks will escalate. Voldemort, or what remains of him, knows you have the Hallows and will not stop sending his servants after you. So I fight," Harry said simply. "Or you hide," Flamel countered. "I could offer you sanctuary, a place where the magical protections are ancient and powerful, where you could continue your education in safety until you're truly ready to face what comes." Harry considered the offer. Safety, security, proper magical training away from the Dursleys, it was tempting. But hiding wouldn't solve the underlying problem. Voldemort would still hunt him, still threaten those he cared about. "I can't run," Harry decided. "The Hallows chose me for a reason. Whatever's coming, I need to face it." Flamel studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I suspected you might say that." "Very well. But if you're to stand against the darkness, you'll need more than the Hallows. You'll need allies, knowledge, preparation. Will you help me?" Harry asked. "I will," Flamel promised. "As will others who stand against the dark." "But Harry," his expression grew grave, "what comes next will change everything. Are you certain you're ready?" Harry looked down at the elder wand in his hand, then to the cloak draped over his arm, and finally to the stone clutched in his palm. 3 ancient artifacts of immense power, united under his mastery. 3 keys to a destiny he was only beginning to understand. "I'm ready," he said, and in that moment, he truly believed it. As dawn broke over Privet Drive, Harry Potter stood in the damaged garden with the 3 Deathly Hallows and an immortal alchemist, facing a future that would arrive far sooner than anyone had planned. The wizarding world was about to discover that the boy who lived had become something far more powerful, the Master of Death, awake and aware years before his time. And nothing would ever be the same again. Chapter 3, The Boy Who Commanded Duck. Harry shouted, pushing Hermione aside as a bolt of blue energy crackled over their heads. "That wasn't part of the plan." Hermione hissed, scrambling behind an overturned table. Harry grinned, the elder wand humming with power in his hand. "When is it ever?" The abandoned warehouse they discovered on the outskirts of Little Whinging had become their practice space over the past year. Today's exercise had started as simple defensive drills but quickly evolved into something more complex when Harry enchanted several mannequins to fire harmless but visible magical bolts at random intervals. Protego. Hermione cast, her newly acquired wand, purchased during a secret trip to Diagon Alley under Harry's invisibility cloak, creating a shimmering shield that deflected another energy bolt. Harry nodded approvingly. At nearly 11, he'd grown into a different boy than the one who'd found the Hallows 3 years ago. Taller, leaner, his green eyes sharp with intelligence and confidence. The lightning scar remained, but it was no longer the defining feature of a victim, just one mark on the face of a young wizard coming into his power. "Your shield's getting stronger," he commented, sliding next to Hermione behind the table. "Ready to counter?" She blew a strand of bushy hair from her face. "On 3? 3. Harry immediately rolled out, Hermione shouting in exasperation at his typical disregard for proper counting. 2 years of friendship and a year of magical training had forged Hermione Granger into something remarkable. Still bookish and precise, but now with an edge of adaptability that came from Harry's influence. Her logical mind had taken to magical theory with stunning speed, while her natural determination made her practical skills progress faster than Harry had thought possible. Reducto, she cast at one of the mannequins, blasting it into fragments. Incendio. Harry followed up, setting another ablaze. Together they made short work of the remaining targets, their spells complementing each other with practiced precision. When the last mannequin fell, they stood back to back in the center of the warehouse, wands extended, breathing hard but exhilarated. "Getting sloppy, Potter," came a gravelly voice from the shadows. "You left your right flank exposed twice." Harry turned with a smile as Nicholas Flamel emerged, looking no older than he had when they'd first met face to face after the Death Eater attack. The ancient alchemist had become Harry's most consistent mentor, appearing irregularly but always when needed. "I was testing Hermione's awareness," Harry replied cheekily. Hermione rolled her eyes. "Yes, your tactical mistakes are always intentional teaching moments. Never just mistakes." Flamel chuckled, surveying the destroyed mannequins. "Nevertheless, your coordination improves. You fight well together. Any news?" Harry asked, his expression turning serious. The light-hearted practice sessions were necessary but always shadowed by the knowledge that real threats lurked beyond. Flamel's face darkened. "Movement in Albania. The wraith that once was Voldemort has possessed another host, stronger than the last. And he's traveling west. Toward Britain," Hermione said quietly. She'd been brought fully into Harry's confidence over the past year, learning about the prophecy, the threat of Voldemort, everything except the true nature of the Resurrection Stone. Harry still kept his conversations with his parents private. "How long?" Harry asked, absently running a finger along the elder wand's length. "Months, not years," Flamel replied. "He's gathering followers, strength, knowledge. And he's not the only one closing in." The alchemist pulled a copy of the Daily Prophet from his robes, handing it to Harry. "Dumbledore has finally gone public with his concerns." The newspaper headline blared, "Boy who lived missing. Dumbledore raises alarm about Harry Potter's whereabouts." "Missing?" Harry snorted. "I've been right here the whole time." "You've been hidden by the Hallows magic," Flamel corrected. "The blood wards that once protected you at Privet Drive have been superseded by the Hallows' own protections. Dumbledore's monitoring charms haven't registered your magical signature properly for years. So why go public now?" Hermione asked, reading over Harry's shoulder. "Because time runs short," Flamel said grimly. "Your Hogwarts letter will arrive soon. Dumbledore knows you must surface then. He's trying to flush you out on his terms rather than yours." Harry folded the newspaper decisively. "Then we accelerate our plans. No more waiting. Are you sure you're ready?" Flamel asked, though his tone suggested he already knew Harry's answer. Harry glanced at Hermione, who nodded firmly. "We're ready. The Dursley household had reached an uneasy equilibrium over the past 2 years. Vernon and Petunia had essentially surrendered any pretense of authority over their nephew, recognizing on some instinctual level that the power dynamic had shifted irreversibly. Harry came and went as he pleased, took what he needed, and in return, maintained a facade of normality for the neighbors and authorities. Dudley alone had undergone a genuine change in their relationship. After Harry had saved him from a group of older bullies, using magic discreetly to trip the attackers when they cornered Dudley, a fragile respect had formed between the cousins. Not friendship, not quite, but a mutual agreement to leave past grievances behind. This particular morning, Harry sat at the breakfast table scanning the Muggle newspaper while Petunia mechanically served eggs and toast. Vernon had already left for work, and Dudley was engrossed in a handheld video game. "I'll be gone for a few days," Harry announced casually. "Starting tomorrow." Petunia nearly dropped the frying pan. "What? Where could you possibly be going?" "London," Harry replied, not looking up from the paper. "I have business to attend to." "Business?" Petunia repeated incredulously. "You're 10 years old." "Almost 11, Harry corrected mildly. "And yes, business. Personal matters that don't concern you." The dismissal in his tone made Petunia's face flush, but she knew better than to push. "And how exactly do you plan to get to London and stay there? With what money?" Harry finally looked up, his green eyes, so like Lily's, meeting hers directly. "I have resources you know nothing about, Aunt Petunia. I'll be fine." Something in his gaze made Petunia step back. Over the years, she'd developed an almost superstitious fear of contradicting Harry directly. She'd never witnessed overt magic from him, but she sensed it, felt it like a charge in the air around him. "Fine," she said stiffly. "But if authorities come looking, tell them I'm staying with a friend for a few days." Which is true, technically. Harry folded the paper and stood. "Dudley, want to play a round of that new fighting game before I go?" Dudley looked up, surprised by the offer but not displeased. "Yeah, all right." As the boys headed toward Dudley's room, Petunia watched with a mixture of resentment and, though she'd never admit it, relief. The boy was leaving, even temporarily. Perhaps she could breathe without that constant pressure, that awareness of something unnatural dwelling under her roof. Little did she realize that the breathing room she sought would become permanent far sooner than she imagined. "You're sure this will work?" Hermione asked, adjusting the small beaded bag that contained, thanks to an expansion charm Harry had taught her, everything they might need for several days in London. "Reasonably sure," Harry replied, checking that the Hallows were secure, wand in a holster up his sleeve, stone in a pouch around his neck, cloak folded in an inner pocket of his jacket. "Flamel's information is solid, and the goblins confirmed the appointment." They stood in King's Cross Station, two children who appeared to casual observers to be just another pair of young travelers, perhaps on a school trip, perhaps visiting relatives. Only the intensity of their expressions might have given away that this was something more significant. "And your parents?" Hermione asked softly. Though she knew Harry communicated with James and Lily through magical means, she didn't know the details, and Harry preferred it that way. "They agree it's time," Harry said. "They don't like all the risks, but they understand why we need to do this." The plan was audacious in its directness. Instead of waiting for his Hogwarts letter, instead of reacting to Dumbledore's machinations or Voldemort's approaching threat, Harry had decided to claim his place in the wizarding world on his own terms. Starting with Gringotts. "Platform 9 is this way," Hermione said, consulting the map they'd memorized. "Remember, we need to approach the barrier between platforms 9 and 10 at a confident walk," Harry finished with a grin. "I know. Dad explained it a dozen times." They made their way through the crowded station, pulling small rolling suitcases as part of their cover. When they reached the barrier, they paused, checking for observers. "Ladies first," Harry offered. Hermione took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and walked directly at the apparently solid wall, and vanished through it. Harry followed moments later, the strange sensation of passing through the barrier giving way to a view of platform 9 3/4, considerably emptier than it would be on September 1st but still bustling with witches and wizards going about their business. "We did it!" Hermione whispered excitedly. Harry nodded, keeping his head slightly down to avoid drawing attention to his scar. "The leaky cauldron next. We can change into proper robes there before heading to the bank." They navigated the magical transportation system with the confidence of much older travelers, taking the Fleur network from a public fireplace on the platform to the leaky cauldron. Harry had practiced the pronunciation of Diagon Alley extensively, determined not to end up somewhere unintended. The leaky cauldron was dimly lit and moderately busy, perfect for two children to slip through without much notice. "They rented a small room for the day, just need a place to change before meeting our parents for shopping," Harry explained to Tom the bartender, who accepted the explanation and the gold without question. Once in private, they changed into the simple but well-made robes Harry had ordered via owl post under a false name. Nothing flashy, nothing to draw attention, but proper wizarding attire that would help them blend in on Diagon Alley. "How do I look?" Hermione asked nervously, smoothing the dark blue robes. "Like you've been a witch all your life," Harry assured her. His own robes were a deep emerald that matched his eyes. When they entered Diagon Alley properly, even Harry, who had glimpsed it once before under his cloak, felt a surge of wonder. The magical shopping district bustled with activity, witches comparing potion ingredients, wizards debating the merits of different broomsticks, children pressing their faces against the window of the magical menagerie. "It's incredible," Hermione breathed, trying to look everywhere at once. "And there's our destination," Harry said, pointing to the imposing white marble building that dominated the far end of the street. "Gringotts Wizarding Bank." They walked purposefully, neither rushing nor dawdling, projecting the air that they absolutely belonged there. The massive bronze doors of Gringotts loomed ahead, flanked by goblins in scarlet and gold uniforms who gave them only passing glances as they entered. Inside, Harry approached a teller with confident steps. "I have an appointment with account manager Gornick. The name is Potter." The goblin's head snapped up, eyes narrowing as they studied Harry's face, lingering momentarily on the scar partially visible through his carefully arranged fringe. "Wait here," the goblin said shortly, disappearing through a door behind the counter. "Do you think they'll make a scene?" Hermione whispered nervously. "Goblins respect two things above all else, gold and power," Harry replied quietly. "I represent both to them." Minutes later, a different goblin appeared, older and more richly dressed. "Mr. Potter," he said, his voice surprisingly deep. "Follow me." They were led through a labyrinth of marble hallways into a large office decorated with weapons and what appeared to be battle tapestries. Behind an ornate desk sat a particularly severe-looking goblin with silver streaks in his black hair. "So," Gornick said without preamble, "the lost heir appears at last. And earlier than expected." Harry stepped forward. "Not lost, account manager Gornick. Simply preparing." The goblin's lips twitched in what might have been a suppressed smile. "Indeed. And your companion?" "Hermione Granger. My trusted friend and advisor." Gornick studied Hermione for an uncomfortable moment, then nodded. "Very well. You requested this meeting to claim your full inheritance, despite not yet being of age. Normally, this would be impossible. But circumstances are not normal," Harry countered smoothly. From his pocket, he withdrew a small velvet pouch and emptied its contents onto the desk, a single black stone with a familiar symbol etched into its surface. Gornick's eyes widened almost imperceptibly. "The resurrection stone," he breathed. "So the rumors are true. You possess the Hallows." "All three," Harry confirmed, not bothering to reveal the other two. The stone alone was proof enough. "And as their master, I claim the right to my full Potter inheritance before the standard age of majority." The goblin steepled his long fingers. "The ancient laws do indeed make provisions for this unique situation. The Master of Death exists outside normal wizarding constraints. He pulled a thick folder from a drawer. However, verification is required. What followed was an hour of magical tests and document signing. Harry provided blood drops for magical authentication, answered questions that only the true Potter heir could know, coached beforehand by his parents via the stone, and demonstrated his control over the Hallows by briefly revealing the Elder Wand and producing the invisibility cloak. Throughout it all, Hermione watched with fascination, occasionally offering observations or questions that impressed even Gornick with their insight. "Everything appears to be in order," the goblin finally declared. "By the power vested in me by Gringotts and in accordance with ancient magical law, I hereby recognize you, Harry James Potter, as head of the noble house of Potter, with all rights and privileges thereof, effective immediately." A flash of golden light sealed the declaration, and Harry felt something shift within his magic, a sense of connection to something larger than himself, to a legacy that stretched back centuries. "Thank you, account manager," Harry said formally. "Now, I'd like a full accounting of the Potter holdings, and I have several specific instructions regarding property access and gold transfers." For the next 2 hours, Harry and Gornick discussed the substantial Potter fortune, properties, investments, heirlooms, and liquid assets. With Hermione taking careful notes, Harry set his financial affairs in order, establishing himself as an independent entity in the wizarding world. "One last matter," Harry said as they concluded. "I require a permanent portkey to Potter Manor, keyed to myself and Miss Granger only." Gornick nodded, producing a small golden key. "The ancestral home has been maintained by the house elves in your absence. This key will transport you directly to the manor grounds when you speak the activation phrase of your choosing." "Home awaits," Harry decided after a moment's thought. "That will be the phrase." As they left Gringotts, the afternoon sun caught the golden highlights in Hermione's hair. She turned to Harry with eyes bright with excitement and a touch of apprehension. "We really did it," she said. "Phase 1 complete." Harry nodded, feeling the weight of the Potter ring now on his finger, concealed by a simple glamour charm. "Next stop, Potter Manor. Time to establish our base of operations." "Before that," Hermione said hesitantly, "don't you think we should buy our school supplies? Since we're here anyway." Harry considered this. "It's a risk. We don't have our letters yet, and purchasing first-year materials might alert Dumbledore. Or it might reinforce that you're planning to attend Hogwarts normally," Hermione countered. "Plus, I really want to see Flourish and Blots." Harry laughed. Some things never changed, Hermione's love of bookshops chief among them. "All right, quick shopping trip. But we keep our heads down." Potter Manor exceeded all expectations. Located in the Welsh countryside behind powerful wards that had kept it hidden and protected for generations, the stately home sprawled across manicured grounds with gardens, a small Quidditch pitch, and even a stream running along the eastern boundary. "It's beautiful," Hermione gasped as they appeared at the gates following their portkey journey. Harry felt something unexpected, a sense of homecoming, of rightness. This was where his father had grown up, where generations of Potters had lived and loved and built their legacy. And now, it was his. 3 house elves met them at the door, beside themselves with joy at the return of a Potter to the ancestral home. Mipsy, Toby, and Eldon had maintained the manor faithfully for a decade, keeping everything in perfect order for the day the young master would return. "Master Harry is home." Mipsy squealed, tears streaming down her face. "We is waiting so long." Harry, who had been coached by his parents on proper house elf etiquette, bowed respectfully. "Thank you for your loyalty and service. This is my friend, Hermione Granger. She is to be accorded every courtesy as my honored guest." The tour of the manor revealed a home that perfectly balanced grandeur with comfort. Unlike the cold opulence of manors like the Malfoys, Potter Manor felt lived in and welcoming despite its impressive size. Library, potions laboratory, dueling room, conservatory, each space offered new possibilities for learning and preparation. That evening, after a dinner that left both children marveling at house elf cooking, Harry and Hermione sat in the family study, reviewing their plans. "The Manor's wards will prevent anyone from finding us unless specifically invited," Harry explained, consulting notes his father had provided. "Not even the Ministry's underage magic detection works here, it's an ancestral home established before those regulations. So we can practice freely," Hermione observed, already eyeing the extensive library visible through an adjoining door. "Exactly. And with the house elves' help, we can receive deliveries, information, even visitors without exposing our location." Harry tapped a map of Britain spread across the desk. "Flamel believes Voldemort's wraith is here, in the Lake District, gathering strength. Dumbledore is here, at Hogwarts, planning his next move regarding me. And we're here," Hermione placed her finger on their location in Wales, "preparing for both." Harry nodded grimly. "The Hogwarts letters will arrive in about 2 weeks. That's our deadline for Phase 2. Contact with Dumbledore on our terms," Hermione recited. "Are you sure you want to confront him directly?" "Not confront, meet," Harry corrected. "He needs to understand that I'm not a pawn to be positioned. If we're going to work together against Voldemort, and we probably need to, it has to be as allies, not as headmaster and student." Hermione looked skeptical. "He's still one of the most powerful wizards alive, Harry. And he's been planning your life since before you were born, from what your parents told you." "True," Harry acknowledged. "But I have advantages he doesn't expect." He gestured to the Hallows, which he'd placed on the desk before him. "And I have you." Hermione blushed slightly. "One bookworm against the greatest wizard of the age. I'm sure that evens the odds." "The smartest witch I've ever met," Harry corrected firmly. "Don't sell yourself short, Hermione. Dumbledore may have age and experience, but he also has blind spots. You see things differently, clearer, sometimes." Before Hermione could respond, a soft pop announced Mipsy's arrival. "Master Harry, sir. There is being a visitor at the ward boundary. A wizard with a long silver beard." Harry and Hermione exchanged startled looks. "Dumbledore," they said in unison. "How did he find us so quickly?" Hermione asked, alarmed. Harry's mind raced. "He must have been monitoring Gringotts or Diagon Alley." Or, his eyes widened with realization. "The trace on my wand activation. He's been tracking the Elder Wand's magic, not my personal signature. What do we do?" Hermione asked, already gathering their planning materials. Harry took a deep breath, centering himself. This confrontation was inevitable, it had just come sooner than expected. "We meet him. But on our terms, not his." He turned to Mipsy. "Please inform our visitor that I will meet him at the gates in 10 minutes. Do not invite him inside the wards." As Mipsy disappeared, Harry quickly outlined his approach to Hermione. "I need you to watch from the upstairs study window. If anything seems wrong, if I signal by touching my ear, use the emergency port key to get us both out of here." "I should be with you," Hermione protested. "You will be," Harry assured her. "Just not where he can see you. Dumbledore doesn't know about your involvement yet, and that's an advantage I'd like to keep." Reluctantly, Hermione agreed to the plan. Harry spent a few minutes consulting with his parents via the Resurrection Stone, getting last-minute advice, before heading to the manor gates. Albus Dumbledore stood patiently outside the boundary, looking both impressed and concerned as he studied the ancient wards. His robes were a relatively subdued midnight blue with silver stars, and his eyes twinkled behind half-moon spectacles as Harry approached from the other side of the gate. "Harry," he said warmly. "At last we meet properly. Though I must say, this is hardly where I expected to find you." "Headmaster Dumbledore," Harry replied, keeping his tone neutral. "I'd say this is a surprise, but we both know that's not true." Dumbledore's smile dimmed slightly. "You've been expecting me?" "For years," Harry confirmed. "Ever since you and Professor Snape watched the house on Privet Drive when I was 8. "Ah." Dumbledore nodded thoughtfully. You saw us, then. Even through your remarkable cloak. The Hallows don't hide their master from death, but they don't hide death's approach from their master either, Harry said, deliberately cryptic. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose. A profound observation for one so young. You've learned much about your inheritances, it seems. More than was intended for me to know at this age, certainly, Harry agreed, a hint of accusation in his tone. The old wizard sighed. Harry, I understand you may have questions, concerns about decisions made on your behalf. I don't, actually, Harry interrupted calmly. My parents have explained everything. Your intentions, your plans, your reasoning. I understand why you did what you did. Dumbledore looked genuinely startled. Your parents? Harry held up the resurrection stone. They've been guiding me since I was 7. They're spirits, at least. A shadow crossed Dumbledore's face. Harry, the stone doesn't truly return the dead. The figures it summons are but echoes, shadows of those lost to us. I know what they are, Harry replied evenly. And what they aren't. But they remember their lives, their loves, their knowledge. They've been excellent teachers. I see. Dumbledore's expression was unreadable. And the other Hallows? The one that once was mine, the cloak that was your father's. Harry didn't answer directly. The Hallows chose me, Professor. They weren't stolen or taken. They came to me when I needed them most. A remarkable occurrence, Dumbledore acknowledged. In all my studies of the Hallows, I've never encountered an instance of them seeking a master rather than being sought. Perhaps they were tired of being used for the wrong reasons, Harry suggested. Power, fear, hiding, revenge. Maybe they wanted something different. Dumbledore studied Harry with new intensity. And what do you use them for, Harry? Protection. Learning. Connection. Harry met the older wizard's gaze steadily. And soon, confrontation. Voldemort, Dumbledore said softly. Harry nodded. He's returning. His wraith grows stronger. He sent Death Eaters after me 2 years ago, and the attempts will only escalate. This is precisely why I'm concerned, Harry, Dumbledore said earnestly, taking a step closer to the gate. You're placing yourself in tremendous danger. At Hogwarts, under my protection, I'll attend Hogwarts, Harry interrupted. But not as a child to be sheltered. Not as a weapon to be forged. As myself, with my eyes open. He straightened his shoulders. The prophecy gave him the power to mark me as his equal. The Hallows gave me the power to actually be his equal. Dumbledore's expression grew troubled. Power isn't everything, Harry. There are other forces, love, Harry finished for him. Yes, my mother told me about your theories. About how her sacrifice protected me. I don't discount it, Professor. But love without power is vulnerable. And power without love is corrupting. He gestured to the Hallows. I'm trying to balance both. A long silence stretched between them, wizard and boy, separated by iron gates and decades of experience, yet connected by the shadow of a common enemy and the threads of an unfolding fate. You're remarkably mature for your age, Dumbledore finally said. Too mature, perhaps. Childhood is precious, Harry. It shouldn't be sacrificed to prophecy and war. My childhood ended the night Voldemort killed my parents, Harry replied without bitterness, just stating a fact. The Dursleys ensured no new one would take its place. The Hallows gave me something better, purpose. Dumbledore seemed to age before Harry's eyes, the weight of his many years suddenly visible in his face. I owe you an apology, it seems. For my part in placing you with your aunt and uncle. I believed the blood protection was necessary, Harry finished. It was, until the Hallows provided an alternative. I don't hold grudges, Professor. But I don't forget lessons, either. And what lesson did you take from your time with the Dursleys? Dumbledore asked quietly. Harry thought for a moment. That family isn't always blood. That cruelty often stems from fear. That power imbalances corrupt both sides. He met Dumbledore's eyes directly. And that I never want to be the one who places a child in an abusive home, regardless of the greater good it might serve. The word struck home. Harry could see it in the flicker of pain across Dumbledore's face. I had hoped, the headmaster said slowly, to protect you from knowledge that might burden you too young. From responsibilities no child should bear. I see now that others had different plans. Not plans, Harry corrected. Recognition. The Hallows recognized something in me, something that matched their purpose. They didn't plan my path, they equipped me to forge my own. Dumbledore nodded slowly. And what is that path, Harry? What do you intend? To attend Hogwarts. To learn everything I can. To build alliances with those who stand against the darkness. Harry's voice strengthened. And when Voldemort returns in full, not if, when, to be ready. These are goals I can support, Dumbledore said carefully. Though I maintain that 11 is too young to shoulder such burdens alone. I'm not alone, Harry replied simply. I haven't been for years. Something in his tone made Dumbledore glance toward the manor, where, unknown to Harry, he might have glimpsed Hermione's silhouette at an upstairs window. I see, the old wizard said thoughtfully. Well, then. It seems we have much to discuss before term begins. Would you permit me to visit again, perhaps to speak more comfortably than through these gates? Harry considered the request. I'll send you an invitation once I've settled some additional matters. There are others I need to speak with first. Others? Dumbledore's eyebrows rose. Professor Lupin, for one, Harry said. My godfather, for another. Dumbledore went very still. Your godfather? Sirius Black is in Azkaban, Harry. Wrongfully, Harry countered. My parents were quite clear on that point. Peter Pettigrew was their secret keeper, not Sirius. And Pettigrew is still alive. The shock on Dumbledore's face was genuine. Harry, these are serious allegations, they're facts, Harry said firmly. Facts I intend to prove, with or without your assistance. Though it would be easier with. Dumbledore's mind was visibly racing behind those twinkling eyes. If what you say is true, and I'm not dismissing the possibility, there are procedures, legal requirements, which can start with Veritaserum testimony from the chief warlock confirming that the Potters told you directly they were changing secret keepers, Harry suggested. You did know, didn't you? A flicker of discomfort crossed Dumbledore's face. I was aware of discussions about such a change. Whether it was implemented, it was, Harry said firmly. And an innocent man has spent nearly a decade in Azkaban while a guilty one walked free. That ends now. The power dynamic of the conversation had shifted palpably. Dumbledore, who had come expecting to reclaim control over a wayward child, found himself instead negotiating with a young but formidable equal. I will look into the matter personally, Dumbledore finally promised. And if evidence supports your claims, I will use my position to ensure justice is done. Harry nodded, satisfied for the moment. Thank you, Professor. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have preparations to make. Of course, Dumbledore said, inclining his head slightly. Until we meet again, Harry. Your Hogwarts letter should arrive within the fortnight. I'll be watching for it, Harry assured him. As Dumbledore disappeared with a soft pop of apparition, Harry felt a presence beside him. Hermione had made her way down to join him, a mixture of awe and concern on her face. That was Albus Dumbledore, she whispered unnecessarily. And you just, stood your ground against him. Negotiated with him. Harry shrugged, though a slight tremor in his hands betrayed the tension he'd been hiding. He's just a man, Hermione. A brilliant, powerful, well-intentioned man, but still just a man. The legend makes him seem infallible, but he's made plenty of mistakes. Like Sirius Black, she asked as they walked back toward the manor. You never told me about your godfather being innocent. I only confirmed it recently, Harry explained. My parents suspected all along, but it took time to piece together exactly what happened. Sirius was framed by Pettigrew, who cut off his own finger, killed a street full of muggles with a blasting curse, and escaped in his animagus form, a rat. That's horrible. Hermione exclaimed. And no one ever gave him a proper trial? It was right after Voldemort's fall. The wizarding world was in chaos, celebrating and hunting down remaining Death Eaters. Sirius's guilt was assumed because everyone knew he was the secret keeper. Harry's expression hardened. And some people who could have spoken up didn't. They reached the manor's massive front doors, which swung open at their approach. Inside, Mipsy waited anxiously. Is Master Harry being okay? The old wizard did not try to take Master's special things. Everything's fine, Mipsy, Harry assured her. In fact, better than expected. Dumbledore now understands that I'm not going to be easily manipulated. In the study, Harry retrieved the resurrection stone and called his parents, eager to report on the confrontation. Their silvery forms appeared immediately, expressions anxious. How did it go? James asked without preamble. Better than we planned, Harry replied, quickly recounting the conversation. He was surprised, off balance. He didn't expect me to know so much. Or to stand your ground so firmly, Lily added proudly. What about Sirius? He claimed he didn't know for certain the switch had happened, Harry said. But he agreed to investigate and use his position to help if evidence supports it. Which it will, James said firmly. Veritaserum on any of us would prove it immediately. The problem is, you can't testify, Hermione pointed out practically. Not in a form the Wisengamot would accept. No, but memories can be extracted and viewed, Lily explained. And there were others who knew or suspected, Remus Lupin, for one, though he was kept somewhat at a distance due to unfounded suspicions about werewolves. Harry nodded. That's our next step then. Contact Lupin, get his help building a case for Sirius's innocence. As they discussed strategy late into the evening, none of them noticed the small garden snake that had slithered close to the study window, its eyes unnaturally focused on the scene inside, its movements too deliberate to be natural. Miles away, in an abandoned cottage in the Lake District, a frail man with empty eyes sat motionless while his consciousness resided elsewhere, seeing through the snake's eyes, listening through its specialized sensory organs. So, Quirinus Quirrell's voice hissed, though the words were not his own. The boy has claimed his inheritance. Established himself at the ancestral home. And he possesses all 3 Hallows. The snake continued its surveillance, sending back images of Harry Potter and his bushy-haired friend bent over maps and books, of the ghostly forms of James and Lily Potter offering advice, of 3 legendary magical objects placed casually on a desk as if they were ordinary tools rather than the most powerful artifacts in wizarding history. The Deathly Hallows, the possessed voice whispered covetously. Master of Death, a title Lord Voldemort would wear far more fittingly than a child. Inside Quirrell's mind, the fragment of Voldemort's soul calculated and planned. Direct confrontation had failed before. The Death Eaters he'd sent had been captured and imprisoned. No, this required a subtler approach. The boy was preparing to attend Hogwarts, and Hogwarts was where the trap would be sprung. Soon, Harry Potter, he whispered to himself. Soon you will learn the difference between playing with power and truly wielding it. And the Hallows will serve their rightful master at last. The Hogwarts acceptance letter arrived precisely on Harry's 11th birthday, carried by a dignified tawny owl that found its way through Potter Manor's wards with the ease of magic designed for exactly this purpose. Hermione's had arrived at her parents' home the previous day, causing a carefully orchestrated scene of surprise, as her parents pretended shock at the revelation their daughter was a witch. They deserve acting awards, Hermione said, showing Harry her letter over breakfast. Dad actually dropped his coffee mug on cue when Professor McGonagall demonstrated transfiguration. Harry laughed, opening his own envelope. The parchment was thick and creamy, the emerald ink spelling out his name and his new address, Mr. H. Potter, Master Bedroom, Potter Manor, Wales. No cupboard under the stairs this time. We should send the acceptance replies today, Hermione said, already composing her response at the breakfast table. And then finish preparations for Phase 3. Phase 3 was the most audacious part of their plan, and the most dangerous. While establishing Harry's independence and securing Dumbledore's cautious cooperation had been successful, they knew the true threat remained, Voldemort's imminent return. Through careful scrying using both the Elder Wand and techniques Flamel had taught them, they had confirmed that Voldemort's wraith had possessed a Hogwarts teacher named Quirinus Quirrell, a fact unknown even to Dumbledore. The possessed professor intended to infiltrate the school in search of the Philosopher's Stone, which Dumbledore had moved from Gringotts to Hogwarts for safekeeping. It's almost too perfect, Harry commented, reviewing their intelligence. Voldemort wants the stone for a new body. I want to confront him before he gets too powerful. Hogwarts provides the battleground. I still think we should tell Dumbledore about Quirrell, Hermione fretted. Harry shook his head. Not yet. If Dumbledore moves against him too soon, Voldemort will just find another host, another approach. We need to control when and where the confrontation happens. It's dangerous, Harry, Hermione insisted. Deliberately letting Voldemort into Hogwarts, even as a parasite on Quirrell, he's going there anyway, Harry pointed out. This way, we're prepared. We know his target, his limitations, his timeline. The plan they developed with input from Flamel and Harry's parents was intricate but adaptable. Allow Quirrell/Voldemort to believe his presence was undetected. Monitor his movements and activities throughout the fall term. Identify his strengths and weaknesses. And when the moment was right, when he made his move for the stone, spring the trap. I still don't like using yourself as bait, Hermione said, not for the first time. I'm not bait, Harry corrected. I'm the hunter. Voldemort just doesn't realize it yet. Later that day, as they practiced dueling in the manor's dedicated chamber, Harry felt a sudden, searing pain in his scar, worse than any before. He dropped to his knees, the Elder Wand clattering to the floor beside him. Harry! Hermione cried, rushing to his side. Through the pain, Harry saw flashes, Quirrell standing before a mirror, a hooded figure in a forest drinking silvery blood from a dead unicorn, a massive three-headed dog guarding a trapdoor. And behind it all, a high, cold laugh and a voice that slithered through his mind like a serpent. I see you, Harry Potter. Master of the Hallows. Boy who lived. I see you preparing, plotting, playing at power. But you are a child dabbling in matters beyond your comprehension. The voice was inside his head, speaking directly to his thoughts. Harry realized with horror that the connection through his scar worked both ways. Voldemort had found a way to reach into his mind. The Hallows are wasted on you, the voice continued. Surrender them willingly, join me, and I will show you magic beyond your imagination. Resist, and I will take them from your cooling corpse. With a tremendous effort of will, Harry forced himself to his feet, snatching up the Elder Wand. Get out of my head, he snarled, focusing his magic inward, imagining a shield forming around his mind. The pain intensified momentarily, then subsided as Harry felt the presence withdraw. He collapsed into a nearby chair, sweat pouring down his face. What happened? Hermione asked urgently, pressing a cool cloth to his forehead. Voldemort, Harry gasped. He found a way in through the scar. He spoke to me. Threatened me. Demanded the Hallows. This changes everything, Hermione said, her face pale. If he can reach into your mind, it changes nothing, Harry interrupted firmly. It just confirms what we already knew. He wants the Hallows, he knows I have them, and he's growing stronger. But Harry, we stick to the plan, he insisted. But with one addition. I need to learn to protect my mind. He took a deep breath, centering himself. Flamel mentioned occlumency, the magical defense against mental intrusion. We have a month before school starts. That's my new priority. Despite Hermione's continued concerns, Harry threw himself into occlumency practice with characteristic determination. Flamel arranged for a discreet mind art specialist to visit the manor 3 times a week, teaching Harry the fundamentals of mental shields and organized thoughts. Progress was frustratingly slow. Unlike other magic, which Harry had taken to naturally, occlumency required a type of mental discipline that his youth and temperament made challenging. Still, by the end of August, he could maintain basic shields and detect subtle intrusions, not enough to keep Voldemort out entirely, but enough to sense his presence and resist briefly. It will improve with practice, his instructor assured him during their final session. Few wizards master occlumency before adulthood. That you can maintain shields at all at your age is remarkable. The remaining days before September 1st passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Harry and Hermione completed their school shopping, arranged for Hermione's parents to, officially, meet the Weasley family, identified by Flamel as potential allies, and finalized contingency plans for various scenarios they might face at Hogwarts. Remember, Harry told Hermione the night before they were to board the Hogwarts Express, at school, we need to be careful about how much we reveal. You're a brilliant Muggleborn which discovering magic for the first time. I'm Harry Potter, famous but raised by Muggles, learning alongside everyone else. While secretly being the master of death and planning to confront the darkest wizard of our time, Hermione added dryly. Just normal first-year stuff. Harry grinned. Exactly. No pressure. The night before departure, Harry called his parents one last time. Their advice had been invaluable throughout the summer, but they all knew that at Hogwarts, opportunities to use the Resurrection Stone would be limited by privacy concerns. You're ready for this, James assured his son, his ghostly form glowing softly in the dim light of Harry's bedroom. More ready than any first year has ever been. Remember that Hogwarts itself is magical, Lily added. The castle has its own forms of protection, its own secrets. Make it your ally, not just your school. Harry nodded, memorizing their faces, their voices, storing the memory against the coming separation. I'll make you proud, he promised. You already have, Lily said softly. Every day, every choice, every act of courage and kindness, you've already made us prouder than we could express. As their forms faded, Harry carefully tucked the Resurrection Stone into its special pouch, warded against detection and accidental activation. The Elder Wand went into its holster up his sleeve, the invisibility cloak folded into a special pocket in his trunk charmed to be accessible only to him. Tomorrow, Harry Potter would board the Hogwarts Express as the boy who lived. The wizarding world expected a naive child, a blank slate to be molded, a symbol to be wielded by greater powers. They would discover instead the boy who commanded, master of the deathly Hallows, architect of his own destiny, and a force that would reshape their world forever. Platform 9 3/4 bustled with the controlled chaos of departure day. Parents fussed over children, owls hooted indignantly in their cages, older students reunited with excited chatter while first years gazed around with varying degrees of wonder and trepidation. Harry and Hermione navigated the crowd with practiced ease, having arrived early to secure a compartment. They'd traveled separately to the station, Hermione with her parents, Harry via a ministry car arranged by Dumbledore as a gesture of cooperation. There you are, Hermione said with relief when Harry joined her in their chosen compartment. Everything goes smoothly. Harry nodded, stowing his trunk. No problems. The driver was professional, didn't ask questions or gawk at my scar. They settled in as the platform grew more crowded outside their window. A family of redheads arrived in a noisy group, the Weasleys, Harry recognized from Flamel's intelligence. The youngest boy would be in their year, the twin brothers notorious pranksters, and the youngest child, a girl, would start Hogwarts the following year. We should make friends with them, Hermione murmured, following Harry's gaze. Your parents said the Weasleys were firmly against Voldemort in the last war. Agreed. But let it happen naturally. We don't want to seem like we're collecting allies. The train began to fill as departure time approached. Their compartment door slid open to reveal a round-faced boy looking desperate. "Sorry, but have you seen a toad?" "I've lost mine." "No, sorry," Harry replied. Then, remembering his mother's advice about building connections, added, "We can help you look, though." "I'm Harry, this is Hermione." "Neville Longbottom," the boy replied, then did a double-take as he registered Harry's name. His eyes flicked to the scar partly visible through Harry's fringe. "Harry Potter." "Really?" "Really," Harry confirmed with a smile, standing to offer his hand. "Need a hand finding your toad?" Neville seemed torn between awe at meeting the famous Harry Potter and distress over his missing pet. "That's really nice of you, but you don't have to." "Nonsense," Hermione said briskly, standing as well. "3 sets of eyes are better than 1. What's your toad's name?" "Trevor," Neville replied, looking grateful and overwhelmed. As they searched the train, Harry made a point of introducing himself normally to other first-years, deflecting the predictable gasps and stares with good humor. By the time they found Trevor, in the girls' bathroom, somehow, they'd met most of their future classmates and established themselves as approachable and helpful, exactly the impression Harry had hoped to create. The journey continued smoothly until the compartment door slid open again to reveal a pale, pointed-faced boy flanked by 2 larger boys who resembled junior bodyguards. "They're saying Harry Potter's in this compartment," the boy said, his gaze fixing on Harry. "So it's you, is it?" "That's right," Harry replied neutrally, already recognizing Draco Malfoy from his parents' descriptions, son of Lucius Malfoy, a Death Eater who had claimed to be under the Imperius curse after Voldemort's fall. "This is Crabbe and Goyle," Malfoy said carelessly, indicating his companions. "And I'm Malfoy, Draco Malfoy." He extended his hand with the confidence of someone unaccustomed to rejection. "You'll find some wizarding families are better than others, Potter. I can help you there." Harry considered the offered hand. This was a pivotal moment. His response would set the tone for his relationship with a significant faction at Hogwarts. Rejecting Malfoy outright would create an enemy unnecessarily. Accepting his friendship would signal values Harry didn't share. "I appreciate the offer, Draco," Harry said, taking the hand briefly but firmly. "But I prefer to judge people individually rather than by family name. Everyone starts equal with me until they prove otherwise." Malfoy's eyes narrowed slightly, but he seemed unsure how to respond to this neither hostile nor friendly answer. "Well," he said after a moment, "you'll learn soon enough that some distinctions matter in our world." After Malfoy and his cronies departed, Hermione gave Harry an approving nod. Diplomatic. Not burning bridges, but not compromising either. "He'll still end up an enemy," Harry predicted. "His father's too deep in Voldemort's camp. But there's no need to accelerate the timeline." The remainder of the journey passed with visits from more classmates, including Ron Weasley, who joined them for a time and seemed torn between awe at meeting Harry Potter and fascination with Hermione's extensive knowledge of magic for a Muggleborn. As the train approached Hogsmeade Station, Harry felt his scar prickle, not painfully, but a definite sensation that had become his early warning system for Voldemort's attention. "He knows we're arriving," Harry murmured to Hermione as they changed into their school robes. "Quirrell's probably at the staff table already, feeling my approach." Hermione squeezed his hand. "Remember the plan. Act normal. Learn the castle. Build allies. Wait for the right moment." Harry nodded, feeling the Elder Wand hum reassuringly against his forearm in its concealed holster. The Hallows seemed to sense the coming confrontation as well, their magic resonating more strongly than usual. The traditional approach to Hogwarts by boat across the lake provided Harry his first view of the castle, towers and turrets silhouetted against the starry sky, windows glowing with warm light. Despite everything, despite knowing the dangers that awaited, Harry felt a surge of genuine wonder. This was his heritage, his birthright as a wizard, the place his parents had learned and loved and grown. "It's magnificent," Hermione breathed beside him in their shared boat. It's home, Harry replied, understanding the truth of those words as he spoke them. The sorting ceremony proceeded largely as his parents had described. Harry paid close attention as his classmates were sorted, noting who went where, building his mental map of Hogwarts' social dynamics. When McGonagall called, "Granger, Hermione," Harry gave his friend an encouraging nod. The hat took nearly 2 minutes with Hermione, a hat stall as his father had called it, before finally declaring, "Gryffindor." Hermione shot Harry a significant look as she headed to the red and gold table. They had discussed the possibility of intentionally sorting into different houses to broaden their influence, but had ultimately decided to stay together in Gryffindor if possible. When Potter, Harry, was called, the hall fell into expectant silence. Harry walked confidently to the stool, noting the staff table from the corner of his eye, Dumbledore watching intently, McGonagall professionally impassive, and there, wearing a purple turban, Professor Quirrell, whose eyes held a calculating gleam that didn't match his nervously twitching features. The hat dropped over Harry's eyes, and a small voice spoke in his ear, "Well, well, what do we have here? The Master of the Hallows, at your age? Extraordinary. You can sense them?" Harry thought back, surprised. "I sense everything in your mind, Mr. Potter, or at least, everything behind these impressive occlumency shields. Not many first years come to me with protected minds." The hat sounded amused. "Now, where to put you? You have courage in abundance, certainly. A fine mind, too. Loyalty to those who earn it. And ambition, oh yes, though of an unusual sort. I need to be where I can best prepare for what's coming," Harry thought. Facing the Dark Lord again, are we? Bold plan, very bold. Well, with that in mind, better be Gryffindor. The last word was shouted to the hall, which erupted in cheers, the Weasley twins creating a particular commotion with their chant of, "We got Potter. We got Potter." As Harry joined the Gryffindor table next to Hermione, he felt a sharp stab of pain from his scar and looked up to catch Quirrell staring at him with undisguised hatred that vanished so quickly he might have imagined it. No, not Quirrell, Voldemort, staring through Quirrell's eyes, recognizing his enemy, coveting the power he sensed. "He knows," Harry whispered to Hermione under cover of the continuing sorting. "He can feel the Hallows." "Then we proceed carefully," she whispered back. "One step at a time." As the feast appeared before them and conversations bubbled around them, Harry allowed himself to be drawn into the moment, answering questions about his background, carefully edited, learning about his classmates, beginning to build the connections that would form his support network in the coming conflict. He caught Dumbledore's eye across the hall and gave the headmaster a small nod, which was returned with a twinkle that seemed to hold both caution and respect. Whatever their differences, they shared a common enemy, one currently sitting at the same staff table, watching, waiting, planning. "Welcome to Hogwarts," nearly headless Nick said grandly, floating near their section of the table. "I trust you'll bring glory to Gryffindor." "I intend to bring something more important than glory, Sir Nicholas," Harry replied quietly. "I intend to bring change." As the feast concluded and they followed Percy Weasley toward Gryffindor Tower, Harry felt the castle's magic washing over him, ancient and powerful and somehow aware. His mother had been right, Hogwarts itself was magical in ways beyond simple enchantments. He could sense the layers of protection, the accumulated power of centuries of wizards and witches learning and growing within these walls. The confrontation with Voldemort would come, perhaps not today or tomorrow, but soon enough. The wraith that had murdered his parents, that had hunted him for the Hallows, that had whispered threats directly into his mind, was here under the same roof. Watching. Waiting. Growing stronger. But Harry was ready. The frightened child in the cupboard was gone, replaced by the Master of the Hallows, the boy who commanded. He had allies. He had power. He had purpose. And as he entered Gryffindor Tower for the first time, feeling the protective magic of his new home wrap around him, Harry Potter smiled. Not the innocent smile of a child embarking on a magical adventure, but the knowing smile of a young warrior who had chosen his battlefield. Voldemort had chosen Harry as his enemy years ago, marking him with the lightning scar, never imagining that the infant he attacked would return to face him not as victim but as equal. The Deathly Hallows had chosen their master, not for power, not for glory, but for balance, for justice, for the strength to face death without fear and life without surrender. And Harry Potter had chosen his path, not the one laid out for him by prophecy or the expectations of others, but one forged through his own determination, his own choices, his own command of his destiny. The wizarding world expected the boy who lived. They would meet the boy who commanded. And nothing would ever be the same again. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.